Tonight, we are going to wander slowly and gently through the whole of the wizarding world, from the towers of Hogwarts to the deep halls of the Ministry, and through every quiet corner in between. And if you feel like it, you might leave a comment telling us how many nights you have fallen asleep to these gentle stories, for it is always lovely to know that you are there. Settle in now and let your shoulders grow heavy. Let your breathing slow and deepen the way still water settles when the wind at last lies down. If these long, gentle tales bring you rest, you may wish to subscribe so more of them can quietly find you on the nights to come. There is no hurry to decide, and nothing you must do. Only let the thought pass through you softly, like a candle glimpsed through a distant window, and then let it go. There is a whole world of magic woven quietly into our own, sharing the same streets and the same gray skies, and yet almost entirely hidden from ordinary eyes. Witches and wizards live among us, walking past the people they call muggles without ever being noticed, keeping their wands beneath their coats and their wonders behind old brick walls. It is a world of castles and hidden streets, of banks carved deep beneath the earth and villages where the snow lies thick and gold lit, of flying broomsticks and enchanted hats and creatures older than memory. And over the next 20 chapters, we will visit all of it, unhurried and calm, opening one door after another and letting each room glow softly before we move gently on to the next. We will climb into the mountains of Scotland to see the great school of Hogwarts, with its 4 houses and its ancient sorting hat. We will walk down the crooked lane of Diagon Alley, step into the dusty shop where wands are sold, and descend into Gringotts where the goblins keep their gold. We will watch a game of Quidditch high in the air, wander the snowy village of Prue-Lard, and explore the vast underground halls of the Ministry of Magic with its folded paper birds. We will look out to the cold fortress of Azkaban in the sea, meet the strange and wondrous creatures of this world, sail across the water to the other great schools, and trace the long history that flows beneath it all. You do not need to remember any of it. You do not need to follow along or hold on to a single name. This is simply a slow and gentle tour of a whole hidden world, laid out like smooth stones in still water, one after another. Let your body grow heavy and warm. Let the room around you fade, and let these quiet words carry you the way a slow river carries a leaf toward the sea. There is a whole world of magic woven quietly into our own, sharing the very same streets and the very same skies, and yet remaining almost entirely unseen. It is not a world hidden far away in some distant land beyond the edge of the map. It is here, close beside us, folded gently into the corners of the ordinary places we already know. It lives behind an old brick wall in a busy city, beneath the pavement where crowds hurry past, above the rooftops where the pigeons settle, and out along the quiet country lanes where the hedges grow thick and green. It is a world that breathes the same morning air we breathe, and watches the same slow moon rise, and feels the same rain fall softly upon its shoulders. And still, for all of that nearness, it keeps itself carefully out of sight. The people of this world are witches and wizards, and they walk among ordinary people every day without ever being noticed. They ride the same trains and cross the same bridges. They queue in the same shops and shelter under the same awnings when the weather turns. To the eyes of ordinary folk, they seem no different at all, for they have learned across long centuries how to blend into the crowd, how to soften the strange edges of themselves until they look like anyone else. A witch may pass you on the stair, and a wizard may hold a door open for you, and you would never guess the truth of what they are or the quiet power they carry within them. The ordinary people, the ones without magic, are known in this hidden world by a single gentle word. They are called muggles. It is not an unkind word, only a way of naming those who cannot feel the current of magic running beneath the surface of things. Most muggles live their whole long lives without ever suspecting that magic is real, and they explain away the small strangenesses they sometimes glimpse. A door that seems to lock itself, a cat that appears to be reading a signpost, a shooting star that flies a little too low and a little too slow. There is always, they tell themselves, some ordinary reason, and so the veil between the worlds stays quietly in place, undisturbed and unbroken. This first chapter opens the door softly onto that hidden world, so that we may wander through it together, room by room, as sleep gathers around us. There is no hurry here, and there is nothing you need to do. You need only let the voice carry you, the way a slow river carries a leaf, turning it gently this way and that, never rushing, never pulling, only moving onward at its own patient and unhurried pace. We will drift from one wonder to the next like travelers with all the time in the world, pausing wherever we please, lingering wherever the light is warm. Imagine, then, that we are standing together at the very edge of this secret world, at the place where the ordinary and the magical meet. Behind us lies the familiar world of cars and clocks and telephones, of street lamps and shop windows, and the steady hum of everyday life. Before us lies something older and stranger and altogether more marvelous, a world where a broomstick may carry a person over the chimney tops, where a letter may find you no matter where you hide, where a photograph may smile and wave, and where an old and battered hat may know the shape of your heart better than you know it yourself. Between these two worlds there hangs the thinnest of curtains, and tonight, very gently, we are going to slip behind it. The magical world is not a single small place, but a whole society spread across the land, with its own homes and its own shops, its own school and its own government, its own money and its own newspapers, its own games and its own long history. There are cottages tucked into hillsides where no muggle road will ever lead, and townhouses in the middle of ordinary streets that only certain eyes can see. There are villages that appear on no map and inns whose signs face only the wizarding world. All of it fits somehow inside the world we already know, layered over it like a second picture painted upon the first, visible only to those who have learned how to look. To live in this world is to grow used to wonders that would stop an ordinary heart. A kettle that fills itself with water, a knitting needle that knits alone by the fire, a clock whose hands point not to the hours, but to the places where the people you love happen to be. Dishes that wash themselves in the sink, gardens tended by small and secret hands, a fireplace that can carry you across the country in a rush of green flame. To a witch or a wizard, these are simply the furniture of an ordinary life, no more remarkable than a lamp or a chair. And children raised among such things think nothing of them at all, the way a child by the sea thinks nothing of the endless waves. And yet, for all its marvels, the magical world is in many ways much like our own. Its people fall in love and raise families. They worry over their children and quarrel with their neighbors. They grow tired and grow old. They laugh at small jokes and weep at small sorrows. They have their heroes and their fools, their kind souls and their cruel ones, their long friendships and their old grudges. Magic does not change the shape of the heart. It only gives that heart a stranger and more wondrous world to move through, a world of enchantment laid over the same ordinary joys and ordinary troubles that fill every human life. The border between the two worlds is guarded by care and by custom, by long habit and by ancient law, though we will come to that law a little later, when the time is right. For now, it is enough to know that the wizarding folk take great pains to keep their world hidden, and that they have been doing so for a very long time. A wizard learns from childhood to be careful in front of muggles, to keep his wand out of sight, to swallow his surprise when something magical happens, and to smooth away any trace of enchantment that an ordinary eye might catch. It is a quiet discipline, practiced so long that it has become second nature, as easy and as thoughtless as breathing. There are places where the two worlds touch more closely than others, doorways and crossing points where a person may step from one into the other. An ordinary inn on an ordinary street may hide a hidden lane behind its back wall. A crumbling old telephone box may drop a visitor down into secret halls beneath the ground. A barrier at a railway station may open, for those who know the trick of it, onto a platform that no Muggle timetable ever mentions. These are the seams of the hidden world, the gentle places where the curtain parts, and one by one, in the quiet nights to come, we will pass through them together. For now, though, there is nothing to do but rest, and to hold in your mind the soft and simple truth of it all. There is a whole world of magic living quietly beside our own, sharing our streets and our skies, close enough to touch and yet almost never seen. It is full of castles and creatures, of shops and schools, of laws and legends, of ordinary lives lit by extraordinary light. We are going to wander through all of it, slowly and gently, in no hurry at all, letting each wonder rise and shine and then fade softly into the mist before the next one appears. So let your breathing slow, and let your thoughts grow soft and dim, and let the ordinary world loosen its hold upon you like a coat slipping from your shoulders at the end of a long day. The door to the hidden world stands open now, warm and quiet and waiting. There is nothing you must carry through it, and nothing you must remember. There is only the gentle drift onward, from one soft wonder to the next, as the two worlds blur together and sleep begins to gather you in. Long ago, the magical folk made a great and quiet decision, one that would shape their whole world for centuries to come. They chose to hide themselves away from the eyes of ordinary people, to draw a veil over their villages and their homes, and to live thereafter in secret. It was not a choice made lightly, nor all at once, nor in a single sudden moment. It grew slowly out of long years of fear and weariness, gathering like a mist across the land until at last it settled into law. And in the year 1689, that decision was written down and sealed and agreed upon by the wizarding nations, and it was given a long and solemn name. It was called the International Statute of Secrecy. To understand why the wizards chose to hide, we must drift back gently to the times before the veil was drawn, when the two worlds were far more tangled together than they are today. In those older days, witches and wizards lived more openly among their Muggle neighbors, and though they kept their deepest secrets close, the line between the two worlds was thin and often crossed. A wise woman in a village might be known to have a gift for healing. A cunning man might be sought out for a charm or a cure, and magic, though never fully understood, was not entirely unheard of in the ordinary world. For a time, the two peoples lived side by side in an uneasy and imperfect peace. But that peace did not hold, for fear grew among the Muggles, and fear is a hungry and restless thing. As the years passed, ordinary people came more and more to dread the magic they could not understand, and dread curdled slowly into suspicion, and suspicion hardened into cruelty. There began the long and terrible age of the witch hunts, when men and women across many lands were accused of witchcraft and dragged from their homes and put to death. It was a dark and sorrowful time, and the sorrow of it fell not only upon the true witches and wizards, but upon countless innocent muggles as well. Ordinary people accused wrongly and punished for a power they never held. The strange truth, told quietly in the wizarding world, is that the hunts rarely troubled the real witches and wizards at all. A true witch, caught and condemned to the flames, could often work a simple charm to soften the fire until it felt no more than a gentle warmth, and then slip away unharmed while the crowd believed they had seen her burn. There was one witch, remembered fondly in old wizarding tales, who is said to have enjoyed the sensation so much that she allowed herself to be caught many times over, in many disguises, simply for the pleasure of the warm and tickling flames. And so the hunts, for all their terror, most often struck the innocent and missed the guilty entirely. Yet, even so, the hunts left a deep and lasting wound upon the magical world. To live always under the shadow of suspicion, to fear the knock at the door and the shout in the street, to hide one's truest self from every neighbor and stranger, wore heavily upon the hearts of wizarding folk. They grew weary of the danger and weary of the deceit, weary of a world that hated and hunted what it did not understand. And slowly, across many years and many lands, a great longing rose among them. A longing simply to be left in peace, to live their own lives quietly, apart and unafraid, in a world of their own making. So the leaders of the wizarding nations gathered together to decide what must be done. They came from many countries and spoke many tongues, and they carried between them the memory of long suffering and the hope of long peace. After much talk and much thought, they agreed at last upon a single great plan. The two worlds, they decided, must be parted. The magical folk would withdraw from the sight of the muggles altogether, hiding their homes and their gatherings, their schools and their shops, until the whole of the wizarding world had slipped quietly behind a curtain of secrecy. And so, in the year 1689, the International Statute of Secrecy was born. The statute laid down a simple and solemn rule at its very heart. From that day forward, no witch or wizard was to reveal the existence of magic to any muggle, nor to perform magic where a muggle might see, nor to do anything at all that might lift the veil between the worlds. Each wizarding nation took upon itself the duty of hiding its own people and its own places, of watching over its own borders, and of mending any small tear in the veil the moment it appeared. What had once been an open world, tangled and troubled and shared, became from that day a hidden one, quiet and separate and safe. It was a great parting, and like all great partings, it carried both sorrow and relief. Something was lost, for the two worlds would never again live so closely together, and the old easy crossings between them would slowly fade from memory. But something was gained as well, for the fear and the hunting came at last to an end, and the wizarding folk could breathe freely in a world of their own. They could raise their children without dread, and practice their craft without hiding, and gather openly among their own kind, so long as the veil between the worlds was kept whole. And so the statute, for all that it cost, was cherished as a shield and a blessing. To keep the veil in place took a great deal of quiet and patient work, and that work goes on still, unseen, every single day. Whole offices of the wizarding government are given over to the task of hiding magic from muggle eyes, of smoothing away any accident that slips through, and of gently altering the memories of any ordinary person who sees too much. Buildings are enchanted so that muggles simply forget to notice them or feel a sudden urge to be somewhere else. Whole villages are folded away where no muggle road will ever lead. Even the great sporting matches of the wizarding world are hidden behind charms so that no wandering muggle will ever stumble upon the crowds and the flying broomsticks above. And so the two worlds learned to live side by side, one bright and visible, the other veiled and quiet, each going about its own life without disturbing the other. The Muggle world grew and changed across the centuries, filling with its own inventions and its own wonders, never guessing at the magical world folded softly against it, and the wizarding world settled into its long secret peace, keeping its old ways and its old secrets, watching the Muggle world from behind the curtain with a mixture of fondness and caution and gentle amusement. The statute held year after year, generation after generation, a quiet promise kept across the ages. There is something restful in the very idea of it, this great decision to withdraw into peace, to draw the curtain and let the fear fall away. A whole people choosing quiet over danger, safety over strife, a hidden life lived gently among its own. The veil that was drawn in 1689 hangs still, soft and unbroken, between the world you know and the world we are exploring, and it is that very veil that keeps the wizarding world so calm and so untroubled and so wonderfully apart. So let the thought of it settle over you now, soft as a curtain drawn across a window at dusk. A world that chose to hide itself away out of long weariness and old fear, and found peace at last behind the veil. There is nothing more you need to hold on to, and nothing you must remember. Let the old fears fall quiet, and let the veil hang still and soft between the worlds, and let yourself drift gently onward into the calm that lies behind it. High in the mountains of Scotland, far from any Muggle road or Muggle town, there stands a great castle called Hogwarts, and it is the school of witchcraft and wizardry, where the young witches and wizards of Britain go to learn their craft. It was founded more than 1,000 years ago, in an age so distant that the memory of it has faded almost into legend, and it has stood upon its high and lonely hill ever since, through storm and snow and the slow turning of the centuries. To the children of the magical world, it is the dearest place in all the earth, a home, away from home, a beloved and familiar shape upon the horizon of the heart. The castle sits upon the shore of a great black lake, ringed all about by mountains and by forests, in a wild and beautiful land where the mist gathers in the valleys and the wind moves softly through the pines. It is a vast and sprawling place, a tangle of towers and turrets rising against the sky, of battlements and bridges and long high walls, of courtyards and cloisters, and countless windows glowing warm and gold against the dusk. There are so many towers that no one has ever quite counted them all, and they rise at every height and every angle, some slender and some broad, some crowned with pointed roofs, and some open to the stars. To reach the castle from the world outside is itself a kind of small enchantment, and the first journey there is one that no young witch or wizard ever forgets. The students travel north upon a scarlet steam train that leaves from a hidden platform in a great Muggle railway station, a platform that only wizarding folk can find. All day the train carries them through the changing country, past fields and rivers and rolling green hills, ever northward toward the mountains, while the light slowly softens and the afternoon fades into evening. And when at last the train slows and stops at a small dark station, the youngest students are led down to the water and carried across the lake in little boats, so that they see the castle for the first time all lit up and shining above the black and glassy water. Hogwarts is hidden from Muggle eyes by powerful and ancient enchantments, woven into its very stones by generations of witches and wizards. To a wandering Muggle, should one ever come so far into those lonely mountains, the castle would not appear as a castle at all. He would see only a crumbling ruin, a heap of old and broken stone, and above the gates he might glimpse a warning sign telling him to keep away, that the place was dangerous and unsafe. And feeling suddenly that he had somewhere else to be, he would turn and go, never knowing that he had stood at the very threshold of the greatest school of magic in all the land. Within its walls, the castle is even greater than it seems from without, for it is a place of endless rooms and endless passages, of secrets folded within secrets. There are wide and echoing halls and narrow winding stairs, grand chambers hung with tapestries and forgotten corners thick with dust. There are classrooms and dormitories, kitchens and towers, dungeons deep below the ground, and airy rooms high above the clouds. There are hidden passages behind statues and tapestries, doorways that appear only to those who know the way, and rooms that seem to move about the castle so that no map can ever quite hold them. There are trophy rooms and libraries, greenhouses warm and green against the cold, and an owlery high in a windswept tower where the owls of the school roost and rest between their errands. There are quiet chambers no one has entered in an age, and stone corridors where the torches light themselves as you pass and go dark again once you have gone. Even those who have lived at Hogwarts for many years never come to know it entirely, for the old castle keeps some of its secrets to itself and reveals them only slowly, a little at a time, to those it comes to trust. The very stairways of Hogwarts are alive with movement, for there are a great many of them, and they do not always stay where you would expect. Some of the grand staircases swing slowly from one landing to another, carrying anyone upon them to a different floor than they had meant to reach. A student climbing to a lesson may find the stairs beneath his feet drifting gently sideways, and must wait patiently for them to settle before going on. There are steps that vanish, and steps that trick the foot, doors that are not truly doors at all, but only walls pretending, and other doors that will not open unless you ask them nicely or tickle them in just the right place. At the very heart of the castle lies the Great Hall, the grandest and most beloved of all its rooms, where the whole school gathers together to eat. It is an enormous chamber lit by hundreds upon hundreds of candles that float in the air above the long tables, needing no hand to hold them and dripping no wax upon the diners below. And above the candles, where you might expect to see a ceiling, there is instead the open sky, or so it seems, for the ceiling of the Great Hall is enchanted to mirror the heavens outside. On a clear night it fills with stars, and on a stormy one with racing clouds, and in winter soft snow seems to fall from high above and vanish before it ever touches the tables. The castle is founded upon the deep foundations of the past, upon the labors of the 4 great witches and wizards who built it so long ago. They chose this remote and hidden place with care, far from Muggle eyes, where young magical folk might learn in safety and in peace. They raised the walls and towers, they laid the enchantments, and they gathered the first students to be taught. And though those founders have been gone now for 1,000 years, their work endures, and the school they built still opens its doors each year to a new gathering of children, just as it has done since the very beginning. Life at Hogwarts follows the slow and comfortable rhythm of the school year, from the golden days of early autumn when the students first arrive, through the deep snows of winter and the long dark evenings by the fire, to the soft green mornings of spring and the warm bright close of summer. The castle keeps time by the ringing of its bells and the changing of its lessons, by the meals in the Great Hall and the quiet hours of the night. And through it all the great building watches over its students like an old and patient guardian, sheltering them within its ancient walls. There is a deep and settled comfort in the very thought of Hogwarts, in the idea of a great castle standing steadfast upon its hill, warm and bright against the dark of the mountains. To the children who live there, it becomes the truest of homes, a place of firelit common rooms and soft feather beds, of friends and lessons and small daily wonders, a place they long to return to whenever they are away. Many who grow up and leave it carry the memory of the castle in their hearts for the rest of their lives, and speak of it always with a gentle and unfading love. So picture it now, if you will, that great castle far away in the northern mountains, its many windows glowing golden in the dusk, its towers rising dark against a sky slowly filling with stars. Picture the black lake lying still and smooth below, and the soft lights reflected in the water, and the quiet of the mountains all around. There is nothing you need to do but hold that gentle image in your mind and let it warm you, the way a distant lighted window warms a traveler in the dark. Let the old castle keep its watch, steadfast and calm and unchanging, and let its quiet steal softly over you as sleep draws near. Within the great castle of Hogwarts, every student belongs to one of 4 great houses, and each of those houses is named for one of the 4 founders who raised the school together long ago. The houses are the beating heart of life at Hogwarts, far more than mere groupings or simple names. Each one is a small world of its own, with its own colors and its own emblem, its own common room and its own hidden dormitories, its own long history and its own proud traditions. And more than any of these, each house becomes a kind of family, a circle of belonging into which a young witch or wizard is welcomed on the very first night, and to which they belong ever after. The first of the 4 houses is Gryffindor, named for the founder Godric Gryffindor, and it is the house of the brave. Its colors are scarlet and gold, warm as firelight and as the setting sun, and its emblem is the lion, king of beasts, bold and strong and unafraid. Those who are sorted into Gryffindor are said to be marked by courage above all, by daring and nerve, and a willingness to stand up for what is right, even when standing is hard. They are the ones who run toward trouble rather than away from it, who speak when others stay silent, who face their fears with a steady heart. The Gryffindor common room lies high in one of the castle towers, a warm and cozy round room full of squashy armchairs, reached through a portrait hole behind the painting of a rather grand lady. The second house is Hufflepuff, named for the founder Helga Hufflepuff, and it is the house of the loyal and the patient. Its colors are yellow and black, the warm gold of ripe wheat and the dark of good rich earth, and its emblem is the badger, a humble and steadfast creature, gentle by nature, yet fierce in defense of its own. Those who are sorted into Hufflepuff are known for their loyalty and their fairness, for their kindness and their honest hard work, for a patience that endures and a friendship that does not fail. They are not always the loudest or the most celebrated, but they are the truest of companions, and there is a deep and quiet strength in them. The Hufflepuff common room lies snug and low near the castle kitchens, a warm and earthy place full of round doors and soft yellow light, with round windows looking out at the level of the grass and plants growing all about. The third house is Ravenclaw, named for the founder Rowena Ravenclaw, and it is the house of the clever and the curious. Its colors are blue and bronze, the deep blue of a clear evening sky and the soft glint of old metal, and its emblem is the eagle, keen of eye and soaring high above the world. Those who are sorted into Ravenclaw are marked by wit and wisdom, by a love of learning and a hunger to understand, by cleverness and creativity, and a mind that delights in questions and in ideas. They are the thinkers and the dreamers, the ones who ask why and how, who treasure knowledge for its own sake. The Ravenclaw common room lies high in a graceful tower, a wide and airy room with a domed ceiling painted with stars, and its door opens not to a password but to a riddle, so that only those who think carefully may enter. The fourth house is Slytherin, named for the founder Salazar Slytherin, and it is the house of the ambitious and the cunning. Its colors are green and silver, the green of deep water and old forests, and the cool shine of silver, and its emblem is the serpent, subtle and clever and quiet. Those who are sorted into Slytherin are known for their ambition and their determination, for their cleverness and their resourcefulness, for a certain cunning that helps them find the surest path toward whatever they most desire. They are the ones who set their sights high and pursue their goals with patience and with will. The Slytherin common room lies deep beneath the castle, down in the dungeons below the level of the Great Black Lake, so that its windows look out into the green and shifting water, and a strange watery light moves gently across its walls. Each of the four houses has its own long history, stretching back through the many centuries since the school was founded, filled with famous witches and wizards who once slept in the same dormitories and warmed themselves at the same fires. Each house keeps its own traditions and its own memories, passed down from the older students to the younger, so that a child arriving at Hogwarts steps at once into a story far older than themselves. And though every student is different, and no two members of a house are ever quite alike, there is a thread of shared spirit that runs through each one, a quiet sense of what it means to belong there. Between the four houses there runs a gentle rivalry, friendly for the most part, that adds a warm and lively spirit to the life of the school. All year long, the houses compete for points, which are awarded for good work and good deeds, and lost for rule-breaking and mischief. And the points are counted and displayed in great glass hourglasses filled with glittering jewels, one for each house in its own bright color. At the end of the year, the house with the most points wins the House Cup, a proud honor that the winning house celebrates together. And so, the students are drawn to do their best, both for themselves and for the family to which they belong. The houses shape nearly every part of a student's life at Hogwarts, from the moment they wake to the moment they sleep. Students sit together with their house at the long tables in the Great Hall, each table beneath the banners of its own colors. They share the same dormitories, the boys in one and the girls in another, sleeping in beds hung with curtains in their house colors. They gather in the evenings in their own common rooms, warm and welcoming places where friendships are made and homework is done, and long quiet hours are passed in comfort. Each house is watched over by one of the teachers, a head of house who guides and cares for the students under their charge, a steady figure to whom they may turn in times of trouble or of joy. And each house has its own ghost as well, a spirit who has drifted through its corridors for centuries, telling old tales of the school as it once was. Wherever a student goes, the house goes with them, a steady and familiar circle of belonging. There is something deeply comforting in this idea of the four houses, in the notion that each young witch or wizard has a place waiting for them, a family ready to welcome them home. No child arrives at Hogwarts to be alone. Each one is gathered into a circle of others who share something of their spirit, whether it be courage or loyalty, wisdom or ambition, and each one finds within that circle a warmth and a belonging that lasts a lifetime. Long after they have left the school behind, witches and wizards remember their house with fondness and pride, and name it as gladly as they name their own family. So let the four houses drift softly through your mind now, each in its own gentle colors. The scarlet and gold of brave Gryffindor, warm as firelight. The yellow and black of loyal Hufflepuff, snug and kind. The blue and bronze of clever Ravenclaw, high and airy beneath the painted stars. The green and silver of ambitious Slytherin, cool and quiet beneath the deep, still water. Four houses, four families, four circles of belonging, all held together within the same great castle. There is nothing you need to choose, and nothing you need to hold. Let the colors blur softly one into another, warm and dim and comforting, and let them carry you gently down towards sleep. On the very first night of each new school year, when the youngest students have crossed the dark lake and climbed up into the castle for the very first time, there comes a moment that every witch and wizard remembers for the rest of their days. It is the moment of the sorting, when each new child learns at last to which of the 4 great houses they belong. It happens in the great hall, before the whole gathered school, beneath the floating candles and the enchanted ceiling full of stars, and it is a moment thick with wonder and with quiet, nervous hope, the true beginning of a young magical life. The new students are led into the hall in a long and hesitant line, small and wide-eyed among the older children who watch them from the 4 long tables. They come to a stop before the front of the hall, where the teachers sit at their own high table, and there, waiting for them upon a simple wooden stool, is a very old and very battered pointed hat. It is patched and frayed and worn thin with the passing of the centuries, the sort of hat that any ordinary person would think fit only to be thrown away. And yet this is no ordinary hat at all, for this is the sorting hat, one of the oldest and most remarkable treasures in all of Hogwarts. The sorting hat was made long ago by the 4 founders themselves, in the earliest days of the school, and there is a gentle tale told of how it came to be. When the 4 founders first gathered their students together, they chose the young witches and wizards for their own houses by their own judgment, each selecting those whose spirits matched their own. But the founders knew they would not live forever, and they worried over how the students would be sorted once they were gone. And so, the story goes, each of the 4 took the hat from the head of Godric Gryffindor and placed into it a measure of their own wisdom, so that ever after the hat itself might choose, exactly as the founders would have chosen, long after they had passed from the world. And so, for 1,000 years and more, the sorting hat has done its patient work, sorting each new student into their proper house, year after year, generation after generation, never once growing tired of the task. It has sat upon the heads of countless children, of the brave and the loyal, the clever and the ambitious, of the famous and the forgotten alike. It has seen the school through ages of peace and ages of trouble, and still each autumn it takes its place upon the little stool and waits, calm and ancient and wise, to welcome the newest children into the great old story of Hogwarts. Before the sorting begins, the hat does a most surprising thing, for it sings. A rip near its brim opens like a mouth, and the old hat sings a song to the whole gathered hall, a song it composes anew each year. In its song it tells of the 4 founders and the 4 houses, of the qualities each house treasures, and the kind of student each one seeks. It welcomes the newcomers and eases their fears, and it explains, in its own gentle way, what is about to happen and what each house stands for. And when the song is done and the hall has finished its applause, the sorting itself begins in earnest. One by one, the new students are called forward, and one by one they come and sit upon the little stool, and the old hat is lowered onto their heads. For some it slips down over their eyes, being far too large, and the whole hall waits in a hush while the hat does its quiet work. And what the hat does, in that waiting silence, is to look. It looks not at the face or the clothes or the outward seeming of the child, but deep inside, into the very heart and the very mind, reading there the shape of who they are and who they might become. It weighs the courage in them against the wit, the loyalty against the ambition, searching gently for the house where they will truly belong. Sometimes the hat decides in an instant, almost before it has touched the child's head, and calls out the name of a house at once. And sometimes it takes a long while, sitting and thinking and turning the matter over, weighing one quality against another in a child whose spirit holds many things at once. For most young witches and wizards carry within them a little of every house. Some courage and some cunning, some loyalty and some cleverness. And the hat must decide which of these runs deepest and truest. Now and then it is said that the hat will even listen to the quiet wishes of the child themselves, and let a heartfelt longing tip the balance toward one house or another. When at last the hat has made its choice, it announces the house aloud for the whole hall to hear, and the child rises from the stool with their fate decided and their place in the world made clear. And at once, the table of the chosen house bursts into cheers and applause, welcoming their newest member with open arms, waving and smiling and making room. The child hurries over, cheeks warm with relief and joy, to take their seat among their new housemates, and from that moment on, they are one of them, gathered into the family of their house for all their years at Hogwarts and beyond. And so the line of waiting children slowly grows shorter, one name after another called into the hush, until every last newcomer has been sorted and seated, and all 4 tables are full, and the whole school sits together at last beneath the candles and the stars, ready for the feast that welcomes the new year in. There is a deep gentleness in the whole idea of the sorting, in the thought of an old and wise hat that looks into a child's heart and knows, better perhaps than the child knows themselves, where they truly belong. There is no test to study for, and no way to prepare, for the sorting asks nothing of a child but that they be exactly who they are. The hat does not judge whether a child is good or clever or worthy. It only sees them clearly and truly, and finds for them a home. And in that seeing there is a kind of tenderness, an old and patient care, as if the very castle itself were reaching out to gather each new child gently in. And so, night after night, year after year, the same quiet ceremony unfolds beneath the starry ceiling of the great hall. The line of nervous children, the little wooden stool, the old and battered hat, the long thoughtful pause, and then the glad and welcoming cheer. It is one of the oldest of all the traditions of Hogwarts, unchanged across 1,000 years, a threshold that every witch and wizard crosses on their very first night, stepping from the world outside into the family that will hold them ever after. To be sorted is to be welcomed, to be seen, and to be given a place to belong. So picture that quiet hall now, filled with soft candlelight and the hush of waiting. Picture the old hat upon its stool, wise and worn and patient, ready to look kindly into each young heart. Picture the moment of choosing, gentle and sure, and the warm cheer of welcome that follows, and the relief of a child who has found their place at last. There is nothing here to fear and nothing to decide, only the soft certainty of belonging, waiting quietly for each new soul. Let that certainty settle over you now, warm and reassuring, and let the ancient hat keep its gentle watch as you drift softly down into sleep. Once a young witch or wizard has passed through the great doors of Hogwarts, the castle itself becomes a kind of companion, alive in 100 small and constant ways. To someone stepping inside for the very first time, it can seem almost too much to take in, for everything here moves and breathes and whispers in a manner that no ordinary house of stone ever does. Yet within a few short weeks, the strangeness softens into something familiar and dear, and the wonders that once made the heart leap become the gentle, ordinary furniture of daily life. This is the quiet magic of living inside a place that is itself enchanted, where marvels grow so common that one soon forgets they were ever marvels at all. Consider the staircases, of which there are said to be 142 throughout the castle, wide and narrow, sweeping and steep. Many of them do not stay where they are placed, but swing slowly from one landing to another, carrying whoever stands upon them to a different corridor than the one they had meant to reach. Some lead to a particular door only on a particular day of the week, and others hide a step that vanishes beneath the foot, so that students learn without thinking to skip lightly over the gap. There is no hurry in any of this, only a slow and patient dance of stone, and in time, the pupils come to know the moods of the stairs, the way a sailor comes to know the tides. Along the walls of every corridor hang the portraits, and they are not silent images at all, but living things in their own quiet way. The people painted within them doze and wake, chatter softly among themselves, and stroll from one frame into another, visiting their neighbors down the hall or vanishing entirely to a portrait in some distant tower. A knight in one painting may go clattering off to seek adventure through the frames, while a plump lady in pink guards the entrance to a common room, opening the way only to those who speak the proper password. The portraits remember faces and gossip gently among themselves, and they watch over the castle with the fond, sleepy attention of grandparents nodding by a fire. Then there are the ghosts, who drift through the halls as naturally as the drafts of cold air, pearly white and faintly glowing, passing through walls and tables without the slightest trouble. Each of the 4 houses has its own resident spirit, and they are as much a part of the castle as its towers. There is the cheerful fat friar of Pusufle, and the elegant grey lady of Cerdegal, the stern baron of Serpentard, and the ghost of Gryffindor, known fondly as Nearly Headless Nick, who suffered a most unfortunate parting of the neck and remains a little sensitive about it. The ghosts glide to feasts they can no longer taste and lessons they no longer need, and they lend the corridors a soft and melancholy company, a reminder that this castle has been a home to many long generations. Deep below the bustle of the castle, in kitchens the size of the great hall itself, the house elves labor with tireless devotion. These small and loyal creatures, with their large round eyes and their soft, earnest voices, prepare every meal that appears upon the 4 long tables above. No student ever sees the food being cooked, for it simply appears upon the golden plates as if summoned from the air, hot and plentiful and exactly in its season. In truth, it rises from the kitchens directly below, sent up through an old and clever magic so that the tables above mirror the tables below. The elves ask for nothing in return but the chance to serve, and they keep the great machine of the castle turning quietly through every hour of the day and night. The great hall itself is perhaps the heart of the castle, a vast chamber where the whole school gathers to eat. Its most famous wonder floats high overhead, for the ceiling has been enchanted to mirror the sky beyond the roof. On a clear night it fills with a scattering of stars, and on a stormy afternoon the clouds gather and darken within it, and sometimes in the deep of winter. A soft snow seems to fall from the rafters, melting away long before it ever touches the tables. Thousands of candles hang suspended in the air beneath this false and lovely sky, burning without ropes or chains, casting a warm and wavering light over the faces gathered below. To sit beneath that ceiling on a quiet evening, watching the painted stars come out, is to feel very small and very safe all at once. The castle keeps its secrets, too, for it is riddled with hidden passages and forgotten rooms that not even the teachers have fully mapped. Behind a certain tapestry lies a staircase that leads nowhere in particular, and behind a certain statue a tunnel runs all the way down to the village below. There are doors that pretend to be walls and walls that pretend to be doors, and somewhere within the 7th floor there is a room that becomes whatever the seeker most needs it to be, appearing only when it is truly wanted and vanishing again without a trace. Generations of students have spent happy years discovering these hidden ways, and still the castle holds more than any single life could ever uncover. Life within these walls settles into a gentle rhythm marked by bells and mealtimes and the long, slow turning of the seasons. In the mornings, the students hurry down to breakfast, the post arriving on the wings of hundreds of owls that swoop through the high windows to drop their letters and parcels among the plates. The days pass in lessons and quiet study, in wanderings through the grounds and idle hours by the fire, and the nights close in the warm common rooms of each house, tucked high in the towers or deep beneath the lake. Outside the windows, the great lake lies dark and still, home to creatures glimpsed only rarely, and beyond it, the wild trees of the forbidden forest press close against the edge of the grounds. Each common room has its own particular warmth and its own particular feel, shaped by the house it shelters. The Gryffindor Tower glows red and gold, full of squashy armchairs and a crackling hearth, reached by climbing behind the portrait of the plump lady in pink. The Pusuful rooms lie snug and low near the kitchens, round and earthy and always warm, filled with the smell of good food from nearby. The Surdegal Tower rises airy and high, its windows opening onto sweeping views and its shelves crowded with books. Its door guarded not by a password, but by a riddle that must be gently answered. And the Serpented quarters lie beneath the lake itself, lit with a cool green light that shifts and ripples across the walls as the water passes overhead. Through all of this, the caretaker shuffles along the corridors with his lamp, and the poltergeist tumbles overhead making mischief where he can. And the friendly giant who keeps the grounds tends his creatures in his little hut at the edge of the trees. The castle is never truly still, never truly silent, and yet its endless, small motions become a kind of lullaby to those who live within it, a steady murmur of stone and flame and drifting light. To grow up here is to be held in the arms of a living thing far older and far kinder than oneself. And so the years within these walls become, for those who spend them, the dearest years of all. The wonders never quite stop being wonders, yet they grow soft and familiar, folded gently into the ordinary shape of the days. The stairs turn, the portraits doze, the ghosts drift by, the candles burn steady beneath the painted sky, and far below the elves keep the kitchens warm. All of it turns together like the slow parts of some great and gentle clock, and in the midst of it, the students sleep soundly in their towers, cradled by a castle that has watched over children for more than 1,000 quiet years. To live at Hogwarts is above all to learn, and the long years of study there unfold slowly, one lesson at a time, like a great book turned page by page across 7 gentle winters. Magic, it turns out, is not a single simple thing, but a vast and branching forest of knowledge, and each branch has its own room, its own teacher, and its own particular flavor. A young witch or wizard arrives knowing almost nothing of how their gift truly works, and leaves, 7 years later, having wandered through nearly every corner of the magical arts. Tonight, we may stroll softly from classroom to classroom, pausing at each doorway just long enough to breathe in the quiet wonder of what is taught within. Among the very first and most beloved of the lessons is charms, taught by a tiny and kindly professor who must stand upon a stack of books to be seen above his desk. In charms, the students learn to enchant the world around them with a flick and a swish of the wand and the careful shaping of a word. They learn to lift a feather gently into the air, to summon a distant object across the room, to unlock doors and mend small breakages and fill a dark corridor with light. These are the spells of daily life, the small and useful magics that a witch or wizard leans upon 100 times a day, and the classroom is full of soft floating things and the patient repetition of gentle motions. Down the corridor lies the classroom of Transfiguration, one of the most demanding of all the arts, where students learn to change one thing into another. Here a stern but fair professor teaches them to turn a match into a needle, a beetle into a button, a teapot into a tortoise, and in later years to alter far greater things. It is exacting work, for a single mistake in the wave of the wand or the shape of the mind may leave a creature half changed and unhappy. And so the lessons proceed slowly and with great care. Transfiguration asks not only for skill, but for concentration and calm, and those who master it come to see the world as something softer and more changeable than it first appears. Far beneath the castle, in the cool stone dungeons, the students gather for potions, a craft that owes as much to patience as to power. Here, there are no wands waving in the air, only cauldrons simmering over low flames and shelves crowded with strange and slumbering ingredients. The young brewers learn to slice roots thin as paper, to stir precisely so many times in precisely the right direction, to add each ingredient at exactly the proper moment and no sooner. A potion to cure boils, a draught to bring dreamless sleep, a filter to muddle the senses. All of these rise from the careful marriage of the mundane and the marvelous. Potions rewards the quiet and the meticulous, those content to watch a cauldron slowly change its color through the long afternoon. Then, there is defense against the dark arts, perhaps the most watched and worried over of all the subjects, for it teaches the young to guard themselves against the darker magics of the world. Here they learn of the creatures that lurk in shadowed places and the spells that may turn them aside, of shielding charms and counter curses, and the steady nerve required to use them. The classroom seems to change its character with every passing year, for the position is an unlucky one, and rarely does the same teacher hold it twice. Yet, the lessons themselves remain steady in purpose, teaching that fear may be faced, and darkness met with courage and knowledge rather than with dread. Out in the greenhouses, beneath panes of glass fogged with warmth, the students learn herbology, the study of magical plants and fungi. Here a cheerful and earth-stained professor teaches them to tend to plants that move and cry and bite, to repot the shrieking mandrakes with earmuffs pressed tight over their heads, to coax fruit from vines that would sooner strangle the careless gardener. Herbology is a gentle and grounding subject, full of soil and green growing things, and much of what is learned within the greenhouses feeds quietly into the potions brewed in the dungeons below. To spend an afternoon among the leaves and the damp, warm air is one of the small comforts of the Hogwarts year. High in one of the tallest towers, when the sky has gone dark and the castle below has fallen quiet, the students gather for astronomy. With telescopes trained upon the heavens, they chart the slow wheeling of the stars and the wandering paths of the planets, filling their maps with the names of distant lights. It is a subject taught at midnight, in the cold, clear air of the tower top, and there is something deeply peaceful in it, in the hush and the darkness and the vast patient turning of the sky overhead. The students learn that magic is woven even into the movements of the heavens, and they carry that quiet knowledge back down to their warm beds in the small hours. There is history of magic, too, taught by the one ghostly professor of the school, who drifts through the wall each morning and drones on in a soft and endless murmur about goblin rebellions and ancient treaties and the long, slow doings of ages past. It is, to be honest, the drowsiest of all the lessons, and many a student has drifted quietly towards sleep beneath the gentle weight of that voice. Yet within its murmured stories lies the whole long memory of the wizarding world, the record of how everything came to be as it now is, and those who listen carry away a sense of the deep river of time in which they float. As the students grow older, new subjects open before them, chosen according to their own tastes and hopes. There is the study of magical creatures, taught out in the grounds with living beasts close at hand. There is divination, misty and strange, with its tea leaves and crystal balls and dream reading, and the more exacting study of ancient runes, and the careful reckonings of arithmancy, which seeks the hidden meaning in numbers. There is the study of muggles, that curious folk who live without magic, and there are still further arts for those who wish to press on. Each student gathers to themselves the branches that call to them, shaping a path through the forest that is theirs alone. Through all these years, the flying lessons come early, out on the wide green lawns, where first-year students stand beside old-school broomsticks and learn to lift gently from the ground. Some take to the air as though born to it, rising light and easy, while others wobble and clutch and come down again with relief. Yet nearly all come to love the feeling in time, the cool wind and the soft height, and the ground falling gently away below. And from these first hesitant lessons grow the flyers who will one day chase the golden snitch across the sky. Woven together, all these lessons make a slow and steady education, unhurried across 7 long and gentle years. There is no rush to master everything at once, for the days are many and the teachers patient, and each art is given its own time to unfold. A student may struggle in potions and shine in charms, may dread divination and adore the stars, and all of it is well, for every witch and wizard finds their own particular gifts in the fullness of time. The long years of study are not a race, but a wandering, a slow and pleasant walk through room after room of wonder. And so the young of the wizarding world grow up steeped in magic, learning its shapes and its rules and its quiet dangers, until the strange becomes natural and the impossible becomes merely the work of a Tuesday afternoon. Lesson follows lesson. Term follows term. And the great forest of knowledge opens wider with every passing season, gentle and patient and without end. Let those long, soft afternoons of learning drift now through your own mind, the low, warm classrooms and the murmured lessons, and let them carry you gently toward rest. As the long years of study unfold, there come 2 great moments that rise above all the ordinary lessons, 2 sets of examinations that mark the passage of every young witch and wizard through the school. They are spoken of with a certain hush, half dread and half pride, for they are the measure of all that has been learned, and the gateway to all that may come after. Yet even these solemn tests, seen from the soft distance of a quiet night, have a gentle and orderly beauty to them, the beauty of a long journey pausing to take stock of how far it has come. Let us wander through them slowly, without any of the worry that troubles the students themselves. The first of the 2 comes in the 5th year, when the students are still quite young, but no longer children. These are the ordinary wizarding levels, known throughout the school by the softer name of their initials, and they arrive at the end of a year of steady and careful preparation. Every subject the student has chosen to study is examined in turn, so that the weeks of the examination season stretch on and on, one test giving way to the next like waves rolling gently up ashore. There is a written portion for each subject and a practical portion as well, so that the young witch or wizard must show not only what they know, but what they can truly do with a wand in their hand. The examinations themselves are watched over not by the ordinary teachers, but by a body of visitors from beyond the castle, the Wizarding Examinations Authority, who arrive each year to see that all is fair and proper. They set the questions and mark the papers and observe the practical tests with careful, patient eyes. And they carry away with them the results that will be sent back in the summer by owl. In this way, the examinations belong not to any one school, but to the whole wizarding world, a common measure held up to every student alike, so that a mark earned at Hogwarts means the same as a mark earned anywhere across the land. The practical tests are perhaps the most memorable, for in them the students must perform their magic before the watching examiners, one at a time, in a hall cleared for the purpose. A student sitting the charms examination might be asked to make an object dance across the table, or to change the color of a cup, or to summon something silently from across the room. In Transfiguration, they might turn a small creature into a goblet, and in Potions, they might brew a tricky draught under the watchful gaze of a stranger. There is a quiet tension to these moments, a held breath, and yet there is also a deep satisfaction in it. The satisfaction of showing at last, plainly and in the open, everything the long years have taught. When the results arrive at the height of summer, they are given in a scale of gentle words rather than harsh numbers. The very best mark is called outstanding, and below it come exceeds expectations and acceptable, which are the passing grades that a student hopes to earn. Below those lie the marks that fall short, called poor and dreadful, and, at the very bottom, the most unfortunate mark of all, which bears the name troll. A student needs a certain number of good marks to carry on toward the higher levels of study, and so these results, arriving in their small owl-born envelopes, quietly shape the years that are still to come. For it is the ordinary wizarding levels that decide what a student may go on to study in their final 2 years, and this is why they matter so. Many of the professors will only accept into their advanced classes those students who have earned a high enough mark in the subject, and so a young witch or wizard must choose, in the wake of these examinations, which few subjects to carry forward and which to set gently aside. In this way, the wide forest of study, which had spread ever broader through the earlier years, now begins to narrow toward the particular path each student means to follow, the handful of arts they will pursue toward mastery. Those final 2 years lead toward the second and greater of the examinations, taken in the 7th year, at the very end of the whole long journey. These are the nastily exhausting wizarding tests, whose grim and weary name gives some sense of the effort they demand, for they are far harder and far deeper than the tests that came before. By now the students are nearly grown, standing at the threshold of adult life, and these last examinations ask them to show a true and thorough mastery of the few subjects they have chosen to carry to the end. The preparation for them fills the whole of the final year, and the students bend to it with a seriousness that the younger pupils have not yet learned. Yet the tests are only as hard as they are because so much rests upon them, for it is these final results that open the doors to the careers of the wizarding world. To become a healer at the great magical hospital, one must have earned high marks in certain demanding subjects. To become one of the aurors who hunt dark wizards, one of the most sought and most difficult of all callings, one must have earned the very highest marks in a whole cluster of tough examinations. To work at the ministry, to teach, to master any of the great trades, each path asks for its own particular set of results, and so these last tests quietly sort the young into the lives that lie ahead of them. Somewhere along the way, usually in the 5th year, there comes a smaller and gentler moment that sits alongside the great examinations, a quiet meeting with the head of one's house to speak of the future. In this conversation, the young witch or wizard is asked what they hope to become, and together they look over the marks that will be needed and the path that must be walked to reach it. It is a small thing beside the towering examinations, and yet it is a kindly one. A moment when the vast machinery of tests and grades pauses to ask each student, simply and directly, where their own heart wishes to lead them. For all their weight, the examinations pass, as all things pass, and the students walk out from them into the long light of summer with the tests behind them at last. There is a particular sweetness to those first free days, when the studying is done and the papers are handed in and there is nothing left to do but wait for the owls to bring the results. The castle grounds lie warm and green. The great lake glitters in the sun, and the students who have labored so long lay down their books and rest. Whatever the marks may prove to be, the effort itself is finished, and that alone is a deep and quiet relief. And so the examinations, for all the hush and worry that surround them, are simply the way the wizarding world marks the growing up of its young, the way it measures the slow gathering of skill and knowledge across the years. They are milestones set along the road. First, the ordinary wizarding levels in the 5th year, and then the nastily exhausting wizarding tests in the 7th. 2 great pauses in which the long journey looks back at itself and then turns to face the road ahead. There is nothing frightening in them when seen from the soft distance of rest, only the natural rhythm of a life learning its craft. Let all of that fall away now, the papers and the marks and the careful watching examiners, and keep only the quiet image of a summer afternoon with the tests all finished and nothing left to do. Picture the warm grounds and the still lake and the students lying easy in the grass, their long labors done, waiting without hurry for whatever the owls may bring. There is nothing here for you to study and nothing for you to remember, only the gentle sense of a great task set down at last and the deep soft ease that comes after. Let that ease settle over you now and let it carry you gently down towards sleep. Before ever a young witch or wizard climbs aboard the scarlet train that carries them to school, there is a journey of a different kind to be made. A journey into the very heart of the hidden wizarding world to gather all that the coming years will require. For magic, like anything else, needs its tools and its supplies, its books and its robes and its strange small necessities, and there is one place above all others where these things may be found. Tucked away in the middle of ordinary London, unseen by the countless people who hurry past it every day, lies a hidden street unlike any other, and tonight we may walk down it slowly together, letting its warm and crowded wonders unfold at their own unhurried pace. The way into this hidden street begins in the most ordinary manner imaginable, at a small and shabby inn called the Leaky Cauldron, which stands squeezed between a bookshop and a record shop on a busy London road. The curious thing about this inn is that the people passing by never seem to see it at all, for their eyes slide right over its grimy door as though it were not there, and only those with magic in their blood can find it. Inside it is dim and low-ceilinged and full of soft murmuring, a gathering place for witches and wizards come into the city, and it smells of wood smoke and old beer and travelers passing through. It is the threshold, the quiet doorway between the ordinary world and the magical one. Behind the inn lies a small enclosed yard, walled about with brick and holding nothing but a few dustbins and a weed or two pushing up through the cracks. To an ordinary eye, it is a dead end, a forgotten corner of the city with no way onward. But there is a certain brick in that wall, 3 up and 2 across from a particular point, and when it is tapped in the proper way with the tip of a wand, a most wonderful thing begins to happen. The brick quivers and wriggles, and a small hole appears in its middle, and the hole grows wider and wider as the bricks fold themselves away to either side, until where there was a solid wall there now stands a great archway opening onto a long and winding cobbled street. This is Diagon Alley, the beating commercial heart of magical Britain, and to step through that archway for the first time is to have one's breath quite taken away. The street curves off out of sight, narrow and crooked and crowded on both sides, with shops leaning at odd angles, their signs swinging and their windows crammed with marvels. Cauldrons are stacked in gleaming towers outside the nearest shop, copper and brass and silver, in every size, from tiny to enormous. Owls hoot softly from a dim and shadowed emporium, and further along a shop window glitters with quills and rolls of parchment, while somewhere a barrel of bat's spleens sits beside a barrel of eel's eyes. The air is full of chatter and the smell of shops, and everywhere the robed figures of witches and wizards drift from door to door. There is a shop that sells nothing but robes, where a kindly witch fits each customer for the long black school robes they must wear, standing them upon a stool and pinning the hems while enchanted tape measures flutter in measure of their own accord. There is an apothecary, dim and pungent, its shelves crowded with jars of gleaming eyes and dried roots and powdered horn, where the ingredients for 1,000 potions may be weighed out and wrapped in paper. There is a shop for telescopes and strange silver instruments whose purposes are known only to their makers, and a shop that sells trunks and cases, and a stationer with towering stacks of parchment and bottles of ink that shift color as you tilt them. Among the most beloved of all the shops is the great bookshop, its shelves rising floor to ceiling and packed with volumes of every size, from little pocketbooks to enormous tomes as large as paving stones. Here the students gather their spell books for the year ahead, the guides to charms and potions and the histories of magic, and some of the books must be handled with great care, for a few of them snap and snarl and must be stroked gently before they will lie still. The smell of the place is the good dry smell of paper and leather and dust, and one could happily lose an entire afternoon among its narrow aisles, browsing titles on every conceivable branch of the magical arts. For the youngest visitors, though, the very best shops are surely those that sell delights rather than necessities. There is an ice cream parlor where a friendly man scoops out flavors no ordinary shop could dream of, cool and rich and served in the sunshine at little tables on the cobbles. There is a shop crammed with Quidditch supplies, its window given over to the gleaming broomsticks that every young flyer longs for, polished and slender and impossibly fast. And in later years, tucked among the older shops, there rises a shop of jokes and tricks and wonders, painted in colors so loud they can be seen from halfway down the street, packed to the rafters with fireworks and sweets and clever little bits of mischief. The street does not run only in one clean line, for it branches and turns as it goes, and there are quieter corners and darker turnings off its main course. One of these, a narrow and shadowed lane, leads off toward a rougher and less friendly quarter of the magical city, a place of dubious shops and dim doorways where the darker sort of goods are bought and sold. But the main street itself is bright and busy and full of good cheer, and most who come here have no reason ever to wander down those shadowed ways. They keep instead to the warm and crowded lane, moving from shop to shop with their lists in hand, gathering everything the year will need. There is a particular joy in these shopping days, especially for a child preparing for their very first year, for it is here that the whole wonder of the wizarding world first becomes real and solid and touchable. Everything on the school list, so strange when first read, becomes a thing to be found and held and carried home. A cauldron and a set of scales, a telescope and a pair of dragonhide gloves, a stack of heavy books and a bundle of black robes. Each purchase is a small step deeper into the new life that waits, and by the time the shopping is done and the trunk is packed, the coming journey to school feels near enough to touch. And when at last the errands are finished and the light begins to soften over the crooked rooftops, there is nothing sweeter than to sit at one of the little tables in the street with something cool to eat, watching the crowds drift by. The shop signs sway gently in the evening air. The owls stir in their shadowed emporium, and the whole long lane glows warm and golden as the day winds down. Families gather up their parcels and their tired, happy children, and one by one they make their way back toward the archway and the little inn beyond, carrying the magic of the day home with them. So Diagon Alley folds itself away again behind its brick wall, waiting patiently for the next tap of a wand to call it open once more. It is a place of gathering and of preparation, the crowded threshold where every magical life is stocked and supplied before the great adventure of the years ahead. Let its warm and crowded wonders drift slowly through your mind now. The swaying signs and the golden light, the soft hoot of the owls and the murmur of the crowd, and let that gentle bustle grow quieter and quieter, fading softly into stillness as you sink down towards sleep. Of all the many errands that must be run before a young witch or wizard sets off for school, there is one that stands above every other in importance. One purchase that matters more than all the books and cauldrons and robes together. For a wizard without a wand is like a bird without wings, and so at some point in the long day of shopping the family makes its way to a particular narrow shop, tucked among the taller buildings of the hidden street, where the most important tool of all is waiting to be found. It is a shop unlike any other, quiet and dim and ancient, and the finding of a wand within it is a moment that a witch or wizard remembers for the whole of their life. The shop is old beyond easy reckoning, for the family who keep it have been making and selling wands since the year 382 before our era. A span of more than 2,000 years passed down from parent to child through countless generations. Above the door hangs a peeling gold sign that names them the finest wand makers there have ever been, and few in the wizarding world would think to argue with the claim. The name upon that sign is Ollivander, and to receive one's first wand from the hands of an Ollivander is to be fitted with a piece of a very old and very careful craft. The same craft that has served wizards since long before the castle in the mountains was ever raised. Stepping inside, one leaves the bright bustle of the street behind and enters a hush like the hush of a library or an empty chapel. The shop is small and narrow, and it seems at first almost empty, holding little more than a single spindly chair and a worn counter. But behind that counter, the walls rise up in shelves that stretch back into shadow, and every shelf is packed from end to end with thousands upon thousands of narrow boxes, each one holding a single wand. Dust drifts gently in the thin light, and there is a deep and expectant silence in the air. The silence of a place that holds a great many secrets and is in no hurry at all to give them up. Every wand in that shop is made of two things joined together: a length of wood and a magical core hidden within it, and it is the marriage of these two that gives each wand its own particular character. The wood is chosen from many kinds of tree, and each wood carries its own nature, so that holly is not the same as elder, nor oak the same as willow, nor vine the same as yew. And within the wood lies the core, drawn from certain rare and powerful creatures, most often the heartstring of a dragon, the tail feather of a phoenix, or the single hair of a unicorn. Each core lends its own quality to the wand, its own strengths and its own temperament, so that no two wands, even of the same wood and the same kind of core, are ever quite alike. The most curious thing of all, and the deepest secret of the craft, is that the wand is not truly chosen by the wizard at all, but rather the wand that chooses the wizard. This is the old and gentle truth that lies at the heart of the shop, that somewhere among the thousands of narrow boxes there waits one wand, and only one, that is meant for the person standing at the counter. It cannot be picked out by the eye or by the wish. but must reveal itself in its own way, recognizing the one it is meant to serve. And so, the fitting of a wand is not a simple purchase, but a kind of quiet searching, a patient waiting for two things to find one another across the years. The old wand maker moves through this searching with the ease of long practice, drifting between the shelves and drawing down box after box, murmuring softly to himself as he considers the person before him. He takes the measurements first, and the enchanted tape measure flutters about of its own accord, measuring not only the length of the arm, but stranger distances besides, the span between one point and another that no ordinary tailor would ever think to measure. And all the while he selects wands from the shelves, trying now this one and now that, pressing each in turn into the customer's waiting hand and watching closely to see what will happen. Most of the wands, when they are first tried, do nothing at all, or worse than nothing. One may send a vase toppling from a shelf, another may set a draught of cold air whistling through the room. Another may simply lie dead and quiet in the hand, giving no sign of life. The wand maker snatches each unsuitable wand away almost the moment it is offered, seeming somehow to know before the customer does that this one is not the one, and reaches at once for another box. And so the trial goes on, sometimes for many wands, and sometimes for a great many. The pile of tried and rejected wands growing upon the counter while the searching continues, patient and unhurried. Then, at last, the right wand is placed into the right hand, and there is no mistaking the moment when it comes. A sudden warmth spreads through the fingers, and the wand seems almost to sing, and a stream of soft sparks bursts from its tip, gold or red or silver, filling the dim little shop with a gentle shower of light. In that instant the searching is over, for the wand has recognized the wizard, and the wizard has felt the wand come alive, and the two are joined together in a bond that will last for years to come. It is a quiet kind of magic, and yet a deep one, the meeting of a person and the single instrument in all the world that was truly meant for them. The wand maker remembers every wand he has ever sold, every core and every wood and every hand that has claimed one, holding all of it in his memory across the long span of years. He knows the histories of the great trees from which the woods are drawn, and the tempers of the creatures whose feathers and hairs and heartstrings lie hidden within the cores. He speaks of certain woods that suit the brave and others that suit the gentle, of cores that are quick to bond and cores that are slow, and of the way a wand will learn from the wizard who carries it and grow ever more truly its own with the passing years. To listen to him is to understand that a wand is not a dead tool, but very nearly a living thing. Once the wand is found, it becomes the constant companion of its owner, carried close through every day of the years ahead, drawn for lessons and for small everyday magics and for the great moments alike. It grows more attuned to its owner the longer they are together, until it answers to them more readily than it ever would to any other hand. For wands are loyal in their own quiet way and do not serve a stranger nearly so well as the one who won them. A wizard may in time come to possess another wand through gift or chance or circumstance, but the first wand, the one that chose them in the dim little shop, holds always a particular place in the heart. And so the most important purchase of all is made, and the young witch or wizard walks back out into the bright and crowded street with a slim box held carefully in their hands, carrying the one tool that will shape the whole of their magical life. Behind them, the ancient shop settles back into its dust and its silence, its thousands of narrow boxes waiting patiently upon their shadowed shelves for the next hand that is meant to find them. Let that quiet shop drift softly through your mind now, the hush and the dust and the gentle shower of sparks, the slow, patient searching, and the warm, bright moment of finding. There is nothing you must seek, and nothing you must hold. Only that soft golden light settling gently into the dark, and the deep, still quiet that follows after, carrying you down towards sleep. Deep beneath the busy streets of London, far below the shops and the cobbles and the crowds who never guess what lies under their feet, there stands a bank unlike any other in the world. It is called Gringotts, and it is the great treasury of the wizarding world, watched over from top to bottom by the goblins. To reach it, one leaves the bright bustle of Diagon Alley and steps toward a tall building of snowy white stone, a building that leans just slightly, as though it has settled over long centuries into the earth, and that towers above every little shop around it. Its burnished doors gleam softly, and beside them stand goblin guards in scarlet and gold, quiet and watchful, letting the world go by. Beyond the first doors there is a second set, silver rather than bronze, and upon these silver doors there are words engraved, an old warning to any who might think of stealing from the vaults below. The warning speaks of greed and of the fate that waits for those who take what was never theirs, and it reminds every visitor that beneath the marble floor lies far more than treasure. Passing through those doors, one comes at last into the long marble hall, cool and hushed and grand, where the true work of the bank goes quietly on. The hall is very long, and it is lined on either side by high counters, and behind each counter a goblin sits upon a tall stool, bent over the work of the day. Some are weighing coins upon small brass scales, letting the gold slide and settle until the balance is exactly true. Some are examining precious stones through little eyeglasses, turning each jewel slowly to catch the light. Some are writing in enormous ledgers with long quills, setting down sums in a neat and ancient hand, keeping the count of every fortune held in trust below. The scratch of their quills and the soft chime of coins are almost the only sounds, and the whole hall feels like a place where nothing is ever lost and nothing is ever hurried. The goblins themselves are a proud and ancient people, older in their ways than many of the wizards whose gold they keep. They are smaller than a grown wizard, with clever dark eyes and long fingers and faces full of thought, and they are famous above all for two great skills. The first is the working of metal, for the goblins are craftsmen without equal, and the silver and the gold and the strange bright armor they forge are prized beyond almost anything. The second skill is the counting and the keeping of wealth, for no one in the world is better at guarding a fortune than a goblin at Gringotts. They have their own history and their own laws and their own long memory, and they have kept this bank for a very long time indeed. The money they count and keep has its own gentle order, 3 coins for 3 sizes of worth. The largest are the golden galleons, heavy and warm in the hand. Then come the silver sickles, smaller and cooler, and there are 17 silver sickles in every golden galleon. Smallest of all are the little bronze nuts, and there are 29 of these in every sickle. Wizarding children learn these numbers early, counting out their coins for sweets and quills, and the goblins behind the counters know them so well that they hardly need to think, letting the piles rise and fall beneath their fingers like the tide. Yet the marble hall, for all its grandeur, is only the doorway to the true bank, for the real Gringotts lies far below, carved down into the living rock beneath the city. To reach the vaults, a goblin leads the way through a small plain door, and beyond that door the marble ends and the stone begins, rough and dark and cold. There, waiting upon narrow iron rails, stand the little carts, and it is by these carts that one travels down into the deep. The rails run steeply into the darkness, twisting and plunging through a great maze of passages, and the carts rush along them at a wild and rattling speed, choosing their own way through the tunnels as though they knew every turning by heart. Down and down the carts go, past underground lakes still as glass, past stones stretching away into blackness, deeper than any Muggle building ever reached, deeper than the old rivers that run beneath the city. The air grows cooler and older the further one descends, and the light from a single lamp swings and flickers against the walls. It is a long journey into the dark, and yet it is not a frightening one when one knows the goblins hold the reins, for they have made this journey 10,000 times and more, and they know each shadow of the way. The vaults themselves lie all along these deep passages, thousands upon thousands of them, each one a small, strong room hidden behind a heavy door. The vaults nearest the surface are simple enough, opened with a little golden key, and within them families keep their coins and their small treasures safe from the world above. But the deeper vaults, the oldest and the most important, are guarded by far greater magic and by locks that only a goblin can undo. To open one of these, a goblin will draw a long finger down the door, and the door will simply melt away and let the visitor pass. And if any stranger should try the same trick, the door will swallow them whole and hold them fast until someone comes to look. The greatest treasures of all lie in the very deepest vaults, and it is whispered that the fiercest of these are guarded by a dragon, pale and half-blind from its long years underground, chained in the cold and the dark. It is said, too, that other old and secret protections wait down there, spells laid long ago that multiply whatever is touched, so that a single coin becomes a burning flood of gold, or that scald and burn the hands of thieves. All of this is why Gringotts is thought to be the very safest place in the whole world, safe enough to hold the rarest and most precious things that wizards own, safe beyond the reach of almost any hand. Almost, the wizards say, and only almost, for there is one place thought to be safer still, and that is Hogwarts itself, the great school in the mountains. Between the deep vaults of the goblins and the guarded halls of the castle, the most precious things in the wizarding world may rest in peace. And so a witch or wizard who has left a treasure at Gringotts can walk away without a backward glance, certain that it will be there, exactly where they left it, whenever they should choose to return, for a year, or for a lifetime, or for 100 years. There is something deeply restful in the thought of it, in a place so old and so sure, where nothing is misplaced and nothing is forgotten. Far above, the city roars and hurries, and people lose their keys and their tempers and their way. But far below, in the cool marble hall and the deeper dark beyond it, the goblins bend over their ledgers and their scales, weighing and counting and keeping, as they have done for longer than anyone can quite remember. The carts rattle down into the ancient stone and rattle patiently back again. The vault doors hold fast, and every coin lies exactly where it belongs. So we leave Gringotts now, the great white bank leaning gently above its buried treasures, the goblins quiet at their counters, the long rails winding down into the dark toward the sleeping gold. Let it stand there in your mind, cool and safe and endlessly patient, a whole deep world of order beneath the noisy world above, where all things precious are gathered in and held, and nothing ever slips away. Let that feeling of safekeeping settle over you, soft and sure, as we let the marble hall grow dim and quiet, and drift on gently toward the next quiet corner of this hidden world. A little way from the great castle of Hogwarts, across the fields and along an old winding lane, there sits a small village tucked among the hills, and it is quite unlike any other village in all of Britain. It is called Hogsmeade, and it holds a gentle secret, for it is the only settlement in the whole of the land where no Muggle has ever lived. Every cottage, every crooked chimney, every shop with its softly glowing window belongs to a witch or a wizard. And the whole little place is entirely and completely magical, from its cobbled streets to its snowy rooftops. To picture Hogsmeade is to picture something out of an old and kindly dream. The houses are small and slightly lopsided, built of stone and dark timber, huddled close together against the cold of the Scottish hills. Their roofs are steep, their windows are little squares of warm gold light, and thin ribbons of smoke rise from their chimneys into the gray evening air. In winter, which seems to last a long and cozy while in that northern place, the snow lies thick and soft upon everything, cushioning the roofs and hushing the streets, so that the whole village looks as though it has been dusted with sugar and set down carefully among the hills. For the older students of Hogwarts, those in the 3rd year and above who carry a signed permission from home, Hogsmeade is a rare and happy treat. On certain chosen weekends, they are allowed to leave the castle and walk down to the village together. Out through the gates and along the lane, their scarves wound tight and their breath rising in little clouds. It is a small taste of freedom in the middle of the busy school year. A chance to wander among the shops and spend a few coins and warm their hands. And the younger students, still too young to go, watch them set off with a longing that only makes the day more precious when at last it comes. The heart of the village is its little cluster of shops, each one full of its own particular magic. Perhaps the most beloved of all is Honeyduke's, the great sweet shop, which is famous throughout the wizarding world and which seems to hold every kind of sweet that anyone has ever dreamed of. There are shelves upon shelves of chocolates and barrels of brightly colored treats, and sweets that do the most extraordinary things when they are eaten. There are drops that make smoke pour from the mouth like a small dragon, and ices in flavors too strange and wonderful to name, and little sugar creatures, and rows of chocolate frogs that give a lively hop before they are caught. The shop is always crowded and warm and sweet-smelling, and to step inside it on a cold day is to feel that the whole world has turned kind. Not far off there stands the inn called the Three Broomsticks, a cheerful and welcoming place with a fire always crackling in the grate and the sound of soft talk filling the low rooms. Here students and villagers alike come in from the cold and settle at the worn wooden tables. And here above all one comes to drink butterbeer. Butterbeer is the favorite warm drink of the wizarding world, a sweet and frothy thing that tastes a little of butterscotch and fills the whole body with a gentle glow of warmth. To sit by the fire in the Three Broomsticks with a mug of butterbeer, watching the snow fall softly outside the little windows, is one of the coziest pleasures that Hogsmeade has to offer, and it is a memory that many carry with them all their lives. There are other shops besides, each with its own small wonders. There is Zonko's, the joke shop, crammed from floor to ceiling with tricks and pranks and clever little surprises, a place of endless delight for anyone who loves to laugh. There is Scrivenshafts, the quill shop, with its rows of feathers in every color, and Dervish and Banges, which sells magical instruments and mends the ones that have gone wrong. There is a shop for robes, and one for sweets and treats of other kinds, and small dwellings and narrow lanes winding away between them, each with something quiet to discover. Beyond the friendly shops, at the far edge of the village, there stands another inn that is quite different from the warm and cheerful Three Broomsticks. It is called the Hog's Head, and it is a dim and dingy little place, dusty and rather shabby, with grimy windows and a strange smell of goats about it. Few students venture there, for it is old and quiet and a little mysterious, and it has the air of a place that keeps its own secrets. Yet even the Hog's Head has its own worn charm, a fire in the hearth and a strange stillness, and it belongs to the village as surely as anything else. On the outskirts of Hogsmeade Standing apart from the huddled houses, there is one building that everyone knows and no one enters. And that is the Shrieking Shack. It is an old and boarded-up house, sagging and gray, and it is said to be the most haunted dwelling in all of Britain. Fearful noises have been heard within it over the years, wild howls and crashes in the night, and the villagers give it a wide berth and speak of it in hushed voices. Yet from a safe distance, with the snow lying over its broken roof, it is only a lonely old house on a hill, quiet in the winter dusk, and there is even a kind of gentle sadness to it. Around and between all of these places wind the little cobbled streets, and along them the villagers go about their lives. There is a post office with hundreds of owls perched and waiting, ready to carry letters to every corner of the land, sorted by size and by speed. There are small homes with cats in the windows and gardens under the snow, and there are quiet corners where nothing happens at all, only the soft falling of the snow and the glow of the lamplight. It is a whole little world in miniature, complete and self-contained, going gently about its days without a single muggle ever passing through. As the short winter afternoon fades into evening, Hogsmeade grows lovelier still. The lamps are lit one by one along the streets, and their light spills gold across the snow. The windows of Honeydukes and the Three Broomsticks glow warm and bright, and the last of the students, laden with sweets and full of butterbeer, begin the walk back up the lane toward the castle, their voices soft in the cold, clear air. Behind them the village settles into its evening quiet, the smoke rising, the snow falling, the little houses glowing gold against the deepening blue of the hills. There is a deep and simple comfort in a place like Hogsmeade, a place small enough to hold in the heart, where every window is friendly and every street leads somewhere warm. It asks nothing and hurries nowhere. It only sits among its hills, wrapped in snow and lamplight, offering sweetness and warmth to any who wander down to find it. It is the kind of place one wishes to walk through slowly, letting each shop and each lane drift softly by, feeling the cold on the cheeks and the warmth waiting just inside every door. So let us leave the little village now, glowing gold and quiet in the falling snow, its chimneys smoking gently and its windows bright. Let the taste of butterbeer and the smell of sweets and the hush of the winter streets stay with you, soft and warm and kind. And as the lamps burn low and the snow keeps falling over the sleeping roofs of Hogsmeade, let yourself grow warm and drowsy too, and drift on gently through the quiet toward the next corner of this hidden world. Of all the pastimes and pleasures of the wizarding world, there is one that is loved above all the rest, one that fills the hearts of witches and wizards young and old, and that is the game of Quidditch. It is the great sport of the magical world, played high in the open air upon flying broomsticks, and to those who love it there is nothing quite so thrilling. Yet even a fast and lively game, seen from far below on a soft summer evening, can become a gentle thing, a slow dance of small figures against the sky, and it is in that quiet and dreaming way that we shall watch it now. Quidditch is played upon a great oval pitch, and at each end of that pitch there rise 3 tall golden hoops upon long poles, 3 at one end and 3 at the other, set at different heights against the sky. The players fly upon their broomsticks high above the grass, wheeling and turning in the open air, and the whole game takes place aloft, so that one must always look upward to follow it. There are 7 players upon each team, and there are 2 teams in every match, and there are 4 balls that fly about the pitch, each with its own strange purpose and its own part to play. The players are divided into different roles, each with its own name and its own task, and it is worth learning them slowly, one by one. 3 of the 7 players upon each team are called chasers, and it is their work to carry and throw the largest of the balls. Then there are 2 players called beaters, who guard their teammates from the wilder balls that fly about the pitch. There is 1 player called the keeper, who guards the 3 tall hoops and tries to stop the other team from scoring. And there is 1 last player, perhaps the most important of all, called the seeker, whose single task is to search the whole sky for the smallest and most precious ball of the game. The 4 balls are the true heart of Quidditch, and each one behaves in its own particular way. The first is the quaffle, a large red ball, and this is the ball that the chasers carry and throw between them. To score a goal, a chaser must fly up to the other team's end of the pitch and throw the quaffle through one of the 3 tall golden hoops, past the watchful keeper who guards them, and each goal so scored is worth 10 points to the team who makes it. So the chasers weave and pass the quaffle back and forth, sweeping up the pitch together, looking always for a gap through which to send it sailing between the hoops. The next 2 balls are the bludgers, and they are quite unlike the quaffle, for they are heavy and dark, and they are not carried by anyone at all. Instead, the 2 bludgers fly about the pitch entirely on their own, rushing this way and that, trying to knock the players from their broomsticks. It is here that the beaters do their work, for each beater carries a short stout bat, and their task is to guard their own teammates by striking the bludgers away and driving them off toward the other team. So the beaters fly watchfully among their friends, swinging their bats and turning the heavy black balls aside, keeping the chasers safe to carry on their weaving up and down the sky. And then there is the 4th ball, the smallest and the strangest and the most wonderful of all, and that is the golden snitch. The snitch is a tiny ball of gold, no larger than a walnut, and it has little silver wings that let it dart and hover and vanish about the pitch. It is very small and very fast and very hard to see, and it spends the whole game flitting and hiding, gleaming for an instant, and then gone again. It is the task of the 2 seekers, 1 from each team, to search the wide sky for that tiny flash of gold and to chase it down and catch it, for the snitch is the key to the whole game. For when a seeker at last closes a hand around the fluttering golden snitch, 2 great things happen at once. The team of that seeker is awarded a full 150 points, a sum so large that it almost always decides the match. And at the very same moment, the game itself comes to an end. And so all through a match, while the chasers throw the quaffle and the beaters guard against the bludgers and the points slowly climb, both seekers are circling high above it all, watching and waiting, knowing that the whole thing may turn upon a single glint of gold and a single outstretched hand. To watch a game unfold, then, is to watch several dances happening at once, all woven together in the air. Down among the hoops, the chasers sweep back and forth, passing the red quaffle between them, and the keepers hover before their 3 golden rings, ready to turn a shot aside. In and out among them fly the beaters, swinging their bats at the heavy bludgers, sending them thudding away through the air. And far above, high and alone, the 2 seekers drift in wide, slow circles, their eyes moving always across the sky, searching for the smallest and swiftest thing on the whole pitch. The broomsticks themselves are wonders, slim and polished, made for speed and for grace, and a skilled player upon a fine broom can turn and dive and climb as easily as a bird. Some brooms are famous names, prized and admired, swift as arrows, and a young witch or wizard might dream for years of flying such a broom. To rise into the air upon one, to feel the wind and see the pitch spread out below, and the hoops gleaming at either end, is a joy that those who love Quidditch never quite forget, no matter how many years may pass. Quidditch is played at Hogwarts too, where each of the 4 houses has its own team and the matches between them are among the great events of the school year. The whole school gathers in the tall wooden stands around the pitch, wrapped in their house colors, cheering and calling as their team takes to the air. There are cups to be won and long rivalries to be settled, and a house that wins the Quidditch Cup wears its pride all year. Beyond the school there is a whole wider world of the game, with great teams and famous players and a mighty tournament held once every 4 years, the World Cup, that draws wizards from every corner of the earth. Yet for all its speed and all its cheering, imagine the game now, from far away and long ago, on a soft evening as the light grows gold and then gray. The little figures wheel and turn against the darkening sky, the red quaffle passing softly between them, the beaters drifting watchful through the air, the seekers circling slow and high. The sound of the crowd fades to a gentle murmur, like waves upon a distant shore, and the whole match becomes a quiet, drifting thing, a slow turning of shapes in the last of the light. So let the players wheel gently in your mind, high above the darkening pitch, the golden hoops glowing faintly at either end, the tiny snitch sleeping somewhere out of sight. Let the murmur of the far-off crowd grow soft and softer still, and the flying shapes grow dim against the deepening sky, until they are only slow and peaceful movements in the dusk. And as the last light fades over the quiet pitch and the game drifts away into evening, let yourself drift too, gently and without hurry, toward the next quiet corner of this hidden world. Every hidden world needs someone to keep it hidden, and someone to keep it running, and in the wizarding world of Britain that great and quiet task falls to the Ministry of Magic. It is the government of the magical folk, the vast and ancient institution that holds the whole secret society together, that makes its laws and guards its secrets, and tends to the thousands small affairs of magical life. It works far out of sight, deep beneath the ordinary city, and most muggles pass above it every single day, without the slightest notion that it is there at all. The ministry lies underground, buried far below the busy streets of London, in a great hidden network of halls and offices and corridors carved out beneath the city. To reach it, a witch or a wizard might travel by many strange and secret ways, stepping into an old telephone box that sinks slowly into the earth, or arriving through the fireplaces by the swirling green flames of the Flue network, or slipping in through hidden entrances known only to those who work there. However one comes, one arrives at last in a place quite unknown to the world above, a whole government hidden beneath the pavements. At the very heart of the ministry lies its grandest chamber, a long and splendid hall called the Atrium, and it is here that the working day begins for hundreds upon hundreds of witches and wizards. The floor of the atrium is of dark and polished wood that gleams like still water, and the ceiling far above is a deep and peacock blue, set with golden symbols that shift and change and move across it like slow clouds across a night sky. Down the middle of the great hall stand rows of fireplaces on either side, and all through the morning the green flames flare softly as wizard after wizard steps out of them and hurries away to work, brushing the ash from their robes. For a long while there stood in the middle of that hall a great golden fountain, a grand and gleaming thing with figures of gold set about it, and the soft sound of falling water filling the whole atrium with a gentle music. The coins that visitors tossed into its pool were gathered up and given to the care of the sick, and so even the fountain did a quiet kindness. To stand beside it in the hush of early morning, watching the water fall and the green flames flicker and the golden ceiling turn slowly overhead, was to feel the calm and orderly heart of a whole hidden government at rest before the labors of the day. The ministry is led by a single figure, the Minister for Magic, who stands at the very top of the whole great structure and carries the weight of the wizarding world upon their shoulders. It is the minister who guides the government, who makes the greatest decisions, who represents the magical folk of Britain to the wider world, and who bears the final responsibility for keeping the secret safe. Over the long centuries, there have been many ministers, some wise and some foolish, some brave and some timid, each leaving their own small mark upon the story of the magical world before passing the burden on to the next. Beneath the minister there stretches a whole vast body of workers, arranged into many great departments, each with its own long name and its own particular labor. And together they carry out the endless work of governing a hidden society. There are those who watch over the making of laws, and those who enforce them, and those who care for magical creatures, and those who tend to sport and games, and those who mend the accidents and mistakes that magic can so easily cause. Each department fills its own floors and corridors of the underground warren, and each is a small world of its own, full of desks and papers and busy figures going quietly about their work. One of the great tasks of the whole ministry, threaded through nearly everything it does, is the keeping of the secret, the guarding of the statute that hides the magical world from Muggle eyes. When a spell goes wrong in a public place, when a piece of magic is seen by someone who should not have seen it, when a stray dragon or a runaway broomstick threatens to give the whole game away, it is the ministry that must set things right, quietly and quickly, smoothing over the mistake and mending the veil of secrecy before any harm is done. It is patient, careful, unglamorous work, and it never truly ends, for the secret must be kept every hour of every day. Life inside the ministry has its own small wonders, its own particular way of doing things, gentle and strange and rather charming. Messages are sent not by ordinary post, but by little memos of pale purple, folded into the shape of paper birds, and these flutter and swoop through the corridors from office to office, gliding overhead in soft streams, carrying word from one department to another. Lifts rattle up and down between the many floors, their gates clanging, and voices announce each level as it arrives, and the paper birds dart in and out as the doors open and close. It is a busy place, and yet an orderly one, humming along like a great and patient machine that never quite stops. The ministry is not a small place, and its many floors sink one below another far into the earth, each level given over to its own work and its own particular business. The lifts travel up and down between them all the day long, carrying witches and wizards from floor to floor. And at each level, a soft and pleasant voice announces the name of the department that waits beyond the gates. There are floors for the making of law and floors for the keeping of it, floors for the care of creatures and floors for games and sport, floors for transport and for accidents and for the guarding of the secret, and floors so deep and so quiet that few ever have cause to visit them at all. Between them the whole great warren hums along, each level busy with its own affairs, and yet all of them together, part of one single body, one patient government tending the hidden world. To work at the ministry is, for many witches and wizards, the honorable business of a lifetime, a steady and respectable career in the service of the hidden world. Some spend their days poring over old laws, some hunt down dark wizards, some study strange creatures, some keep the records straight, and some simply see that the lifts run and the memos fly and the great machine keeps turning. They come each morning through the green flames into the golden atrium, and they leave each evening the same way, and between the two, the whole vast work of governing a secret nation is quietly carried on, floor by floor, desk by desk, all beneath the unknowing city. There is something deeply reassuring in the thought of it. in the idea of a great patient government working away in the dark, keeping order, mending mistakes, holding a whole hidden world gently together. High above, the ordinary city rushes and roars, spilling its noise into the daylight, never guessing what lies beneath. And far below, in the deep blue hush of the atrium, the fireplaces glow green and the golden symbols turn slowly across the ceiling, and the little paper birds glide from hall to hall, and the long, unhurried work of keeping the secret world safe goes quietly on, as it has for a very long time. So let us leave the ministry now, deep and hidden beneath the sleeping city, its long halls dim and quiet in the late hours. Let the green flames burn low in the empty fireplaces, and the golden ceiling turn slowly in the dark, and the last few paper birds settle softly to rest. Picture that whole vast underground world grown still and peaceful, its work laid down until the morning, holding the secret safe through the night. And as the great machine slows into stillness, let your own thoughts slow and settle too, quiet and unhurried, and drift on gently toward the next corner of this hidden world. Beneath the Minister for Magic, and spread through all the deep floors of that hidden government, there lie the many departments of the ministry, each with its own long and solemn name, its own labor, and its own quiet corner of the underground world. To wander through them slowly, one by one, is to understand at last how a whole secret society is held together. For it is not held by any single hand, but by many patient offices working side by side, each tending its own small share of the endless work. Let us walk gently among them now, in no hurry at all, and see what each one does. The greatest and the busiest of all the departments is the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, and it is here that the laws of the wizarding world are kept and guarded and upheld. This department is the largest of them all, and it holds within it several smaller offices, each with its own careful task. For keeping order in a world full of magic is no small thing. It watches over the misuse of magic, it looks into wrongdoing, and it stands as the great shield between the peaceful many and the dangerous few. When something goes truly wrong in the magical world, it is most often this department that must set it right. Within the Department of Magical Law Enforcement there works a special and famous group of witches and wizards, and they are called the Aurors. The Aurors are the ones who hunt down the darkest of wizards, those who have turned to cruel and forbidden magic, and it is dangerous and difficult work that asks for great skill and great courage. To become an Auror, a witch or wizard, must train for years and pass the hardest of tests, and only the very finest are ever chosen. They are, in a way, the guardians of the whole magical world, the ones who stand between ordinary folk and the shadows, and their name is spoken with respect. Alongside the Aurors, within the same great department, sits the High Court of the Wizarding World, and it is called the Wizengamot. It is the oldest court of magical law in Britain, a solemn assembly of judges wrapped in robes of deep plum, who gather to weigh the gravest of matters and to decide the fate of those accused of serious crimes. The Wizengamot meets in a deep and echoing chamber, stern and quiet, where the whole weight of magical law seems to gather in the cold air. It is here that justice, for good or ill, is finally handed down, and its decisions shape the lives of witches and wizards across the land. Beyond the keeping of the law, there are many other departments, each tending to its own gentler share of magical life. There is the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures, whose long task is to watch over the countless beasts and beings that fill the hidden world, from the smallest and mildest to the largest and most dangerous. This department decides which creatures may roam free and which must be hidden away, which are gentle and which are perilous, and it works always to keep both the creatures and the wizards safe from one another. It is careful, thoughtful work, full of strange knowledge, and those who do it come to know the magical world in all its wild variety. There is a department given over entirely to games and to sport, the Department of Magical Games and Sports, and it is perhaps the most cheerful office in the whole ministry. It watches over Quidditch and the great leagues and tournaments, it arranges the grand competitions, and it sees to the countless small matters that keep the games of the wizarding world running smoothly. When the World Cup is held, drawing wizards from every land, it is this department that carries the great burden of it all, and though the work is heavy, the spirit of it is light, for it is work in the service of joy. There is another department that does the quiet and thankless labor of cleaning up after magic gone astray. The Department of Magical Accidents and Catastrophes. When a spell misfires in a crowded place, when magic spills out where muggles might see it, when some enchantment goes badly and dangerously wrong, it is this department that hurries to the scene to mend and to mask and to set things right. Its workers undo the damage, repair what is broken, and where a muggle has glimpsed too much, they gently smooth the memory away, so that the veil of secrecy falls softly back into place, and no one is any the wiser. There are still other departments besides, each with its own steady purpose. There is one that keeps watch over international matters, tending the friendships and the agreements between the wizarding nations of the world. There is one that manages transport, seeing that the many magical ways of traveling stay safe and orderly, the fireplaces and the portkeys and the rest. There is one that governs the great mysteries of magic itself. And threaded through all of them are countless clerks and scribes and record keepers, filing and sorting and noting things down, so that nothing important is ever quite forgotten. Perhaps the strangest and most secret of all the departments lies deep down in the lowest levels, and it is called the Department of Mysteries. Here work a small and quiet band of witches and wizards known as the Unspeakables, and their labor is kept hidden even from the rest of the ministry. They study the deepest and oldest riddles of magic, the great forces that lie beneath everything, the nature of thought and of time and of love and of death itself. What exactly they discover in their shadowy chambers is known to almost no one, and they carry their secrets in perfect silence, which is how they came by their name. So the making of law and the keeping of order in the wizarding world is not one thing but many, a great web of offices and duties spread through the deep floors of the ministry, each doing its own small part. The Aurors hunt the darkness, the Wizengamot weighs the gravest matters, the keepers of creatures tend the beasts, the menders of accidents smooth away the mistakes, and the Unspeakables ponder their deep riddles in the dark. All of it together, patient and unhurried, holds the hidden world in place, keeps its secrets safe, and lets its people live in quiet peace beneath the unknowing city above. All of these many departments are bound together by the endless business of writing things down. For a government of magic runs on parchment quite as much as on spells. In every office there are ledgers and files and long rolls of parchment, records of laws passed and cases judged, of creatures counted and accidents mended, of every small decision made across the long years. Clerks bend over their desks with their quills, copying and sorting and setting things in order, and the little folded memos flutter between them, carrying word from one office to the next. It is quiet and unhurried work, the slow keeping of a whole world's memory, and it goes on softly in the background of everything else, so that nothing that matters is ever entirely lost. There is a slow and steady comfort in it, in the thought of all those offices working gently on, each tending its own corner, each carrying its own small share of the whole. No single desk holds the world together, and yet somehow, between them all, the world is held. The laws are kept, the wrongs are mended, the creatures are watched, the mysteries are pondered, and the great quiet machine of the ministry turns on and on through the years, careful and calm and sure. So let us leave the departments now, their long corridors falling dim and silent as the late hours deepen. Let the courtrooms grow still and the offices grow quiet, the papers laid down, the desks left tidy, the deep chambers of mystery sinking into the dark. Picture all that patient work laid gently to rest for the night. The whole great web of law and order at peace until the morning comes. And as the last lamps of the ministry flicker low, let your own thoughts grow quiet and orderly too, settled and calm, and drift on softly toward the next gentle corner of this hidden world. Far out in the cold northern sea, where the water turns the color of slate and the sky hangs low and gray for much of the year, there stands a fortress that the wizarding world does not like to speak of too loudly. It is called Azkaban, and it is the prison where the Ministry of Magic sends those it has judged and condemned. It rises from a small and lonely island, a tall and narrow tower of dark stone, ringed on every side by deep and restless water, so far from any shore that no ordinary traveler would ever find it, and no ordinary boat could ever reach it. To the witches and wizards of Britain, it is a place spoken of in hushed voices, a name that seems to lower the temperature of a room simply by being said. For most of its long history, Azkaban was not guarded by people at all. Instead, it was watched over by strange and terrible creatures called Dementors, beings that glide rather than walk, wrapped in tattered dark cloaks, faceless and cold. They do not hunger for food or for gold, as living things do. What the Dementors feed upon is happiness itself, the warmth and the light within a person, drawing it slowly out and leaving only emptiness behind. Where a Dementor drifts, the air grows icy and thin, frost creeps across glass and stone, and every joyful memory seems to fade and drain away, until only the darkest and saddest thoughts remain. This is why Azkaban was thought so dreadful a place, for its prisoners were left to sit with nothing but their worst moments, hour after slow hour, with no comfort to hold to. The Dementors were well suited, in a grim way, to the task of keeping watch. A prisoner surrounded by them soon lost the will and the strength to plan any escape, for despair is a heavy chain, heavier by far than any made of iron. And because the Dementors could sense the feelings of those near them and could feel the presence of a person even through walls, it was thought that no one could slip past them unseen. For a very long time it was believed, quite firmly, that escape from Azkaban was simply impossible, and that once the great doors closed behind a wizard, they would not open again in that wizard's lifetime. The fortress kept this reputation for many years, a reputation as cold and as certain as the sea around it. There is a way, though, to hold the Dementors back, a piece of magic bright enough to push against all that darkness. It is called the Patronus Charm, and it is counted among the most difficult and most beautiful of all defensive spells. To cast it, a witch or wizard must reach deep inside for a single memory of pure and shining happiness, and hold it steady in the mind while speaking the words of the charm. If the memory is strong enough, and the heart behind it steady enough, a Patronus takes shape, a form made of silver light that pours from the tip of the wand. Sometimes it is only a faint mist, a soft shield of glowing air. But at its strongest, it takes the shape of an animal, a stag or a hare, an otter or a phoenix, a creature of pure light that drives the cold and the despair away and keeps the Dementors at bay. Because it is drawn entirely from joy, no Dementor can ever feed upon it, and so it stands as the one true defense against them. The prison itself is a bleak and comfortless place, and the wizarding world has long thought of it that way. Its cells are small, and its walls are thick, and the endless sound of the sea presses against the stone from every side, day and night, without pause and without change. There are high security levels deep within, reserved for the most dangerous prisoners, and lower ones nearer the surface, but everywhere the same gray chill settles over everything, and the same slow heaviness weighs upon the mind. There is little to see through the narrow windows but water and cloud, and little to hear but wind and waves and the faint drifting cold of the Dementors passing along the corridors. It was built to hold and to punish, and it does both without mercy and without warmth. For many years, the Ministry of Magic trusted the Dementors completely, believing that so long as those creatures kept their watch, the fortress would never fail. But the Dementors, it must be said, were never truly loyal to anyone. They served the Ministry only so long as it suited them, only so long as they were fed a steady supply of despair to draw upon. Their nature was not on the side of order or of law, but only on the side of hunger. And so their loyalty was a fragile and uncertain thing, resting upon nothing firmer than habit and appetite. In time, this would prove a grave weakness, for a guard that cares only for its own feeding cannot be relied upon in the way that a faithful servant can. And so, once in the long history of the fortress, the impossible finally happened, and a prisoner did escape from Azkaban, slipping away where none had slipped before. It was a thing so unheard of that the whole wizarding world was shaken by the news, for it broke a certainty that had stood for generations. That single escape began to loosen the fortress's grip upon the imagination, and to raise a quiet and troubling question in many minds, the question of whether a prison guarded by such hungry and faithless creatures could truly be trusted at all. The old confidence in Azkaban, once as solid as its walls, began ever so slightly to crack. In later years, there came a change, brought about after much sorrow and much debate. The Dementors were at last removed from their long post at the fortress, no longer trusted to keep the watch they had kept for so many ages. In their place, the Ministry set trained witches and wizards, guards of flesh and blood, to keep order within the prison instead. It was thought, and rightly, that living guards, whatever their faults, could at least be counted upon in a way the Dementors never could, for a person may be loyal to more than mere hunger. And so the coldest and cruelest chapter of the fortress slowly came to an end, though Azkaban itself remained, still standing on its lonely rock, still holding those the law had sent there. Even now, with the Dementors gone from its corridors, Azkaban keeps its heavy reputation, and the very name of it still carries a shiver. It remains a place at the far edge of the wizarding world, out where the sea is gray and the wind never rests. A reminder that even a world so full of wonder must have its shadows and its sorrows, its locks and its high walls. It is not a place of joy, and it was never meant to be. Yet, it belongs to the map of this hidden world as surely as the bright castle and the busy street, a distant point far out on the cold water, marking the edge where warmth gives way to stone. We need not linger there in the cold any longer, for we have seen it, and that is enough. Let the image of that dark tower grow small now, the way a far-off light grows small when a train draws it slowly away, until it is only a faint mark upon the horizon, and then nothing at all. Let the gray sea and the low sky fade gently from your thoughts, and feel instead the warmth gathering close around you, soft and safe and near. The fortress stands where it stands, out in its distant water, and we may leave it there, quiet and closed, while we turn back toward gentler things and let the cold slip entirely away into the dark. The hidden world of witches and wizards is not theirs alone, for it teems with living things that ordinary people have never seen. Creatures of scale and feather and fur that move through the forests and rivers and skies just out of sight. Some of these creatures are gentle and shy. Some are proud and fierce, and a few are so dangerous that only the bravest and most careful wizards will go near them. Together, they fill the magical world with a deep sense of wonder, so that a walk through an enchanted wood is never quite an ordinary walk, and a glance up at the sky may sometimes catch a shape that does not belong to any bird that muggles know. Among the grandest and most fearsome of all are the dragons, enormous winged beasts of fire and muscle, covered in armored scales and armed with claws and teeth and a breath of flame. There are many kinds of dragon in the world, from the great black Hungarian horntail to the pale Chinese fireball and the soft green Welsh dragon, each with its own temper and its own home. They are counted among the most difficult creatures of all to keep and to control, for they are enormously strong and rarely tamed, and it takes whole teams of skilled and hardy wizards working carefully together simply to tend them. Dragons are usually kept far from people, on wide reserves in wild and distant lands, where they may fly and roar and guard their eggs without endangering anyone. To see one in flight, wings spread wide against the clouds, is a sight both terrible and magnificent, one that few witches or wizards ever forget. Gentler by far, though no less wondrous, are the unicorns, pale and beautiful creatures that live deep in the oldest forests. A grown unicorn is a dazzling white, so bright that it seems almost to glow among the dark trees, with a single spiraling horn and a coat that shimmers like moonlight. They are shy and pure, and they will flee from most people, trusting only the gentlest of hands. Their foals are born a soft gold, turning silver as they grow, and white only when they are fully grown, and every part of them holds a quiet and powerful magic. To harm a unicorn is thought to be a terrible thing, a wrong against something innocent and rare, and the wizarding world has always regarded these creatures with a special tenderness and awe. Deeper still in the forests live the centaurs, beings with the upper body of a person joined to the body and legs of a horse. They are proud and wise, keeping very much to themselves, and they have little wish to mix with the affairs of witches and wizards. The centaurs are great watchers of the stars, reading in the slow turning of the heavens the signs of things to come, and they speak of the future in careful, thoughtful ways. They value their freedom above almost all else, and they ask only to be left alone in their woods, to roam and to study the sky as their kind have done for longer than anyone can remember. A wizard who meets a centaur is wise to be respectful, for these are not servants or beasts, but a proud and ancient people all their own. Then there are the hippogriffs, strange and beautiful creatures that are part great eagle and part horse, with the head and wings and front claws of a bird of prey joined to the powerful body of a horse behind. They are fierce and easily offended, and yet they hold very strongly to their own kind of courtesy, so that any wizard who wishes to approach one must first bow low and wait, unmoving, to see whether the creature will bow in return. If it does, then the hippogriff may be touched and even, in time, ridden through the air. If it does not, then the wise wizard steps quietly away. There is a deep dignity in these creatures, a sense that they must be met with respect rather than commanded, and those who learn to honor it may find in them loyal and remarkable companions. Among the most marvelous of all magical birds is the phoenix, a creature of scarlet and gold that lives an extraordinary kind of life. When a phoenix grows very old, it does not simply die as other creatures do. Instead, it bursts into flame and is burned entirely to ash, and then, from those very ashes, it rises again, young and new, to begin its long life once more. Because of this, the phoenix has always been a symbol of rebirth and of hope, of light returning after darkness. These birds are gentle and faithful, able to carry very heavy loads, and their tears have a rare healing power, able to close wounds that no other medicine could mend. Their song is said to lift the heart of anyone good who hears it, and to fill the listener with courage in dark and frightening hours. Closer to home, within the very houses of wizarding families, live the house elves, small and devoted creatures with large eyes and long ears and thin, gentle voices. They possess a powerful magic of their own, and they take great pride in serving the households to which they belong, cooking and cleaning and keeping everything in order, often quite unseen. Deep in the kitchens beneath Hogwarts, a great many house elves work together to prepare the meals that appear as if by magic upon the long tables above. They are bound by old custom to the families they serve, and their loyalty runs very deep, though the kindness they receive in return has not always matched the devotion they give. Beyond these, there are creatures without number, filling every corner of the magical world. There are the goblins, clever and proud, who keep the great bank of the wizarding world. There are giants, vast and lonely, dwelling far from people in the mountains. There are merpeople who live beneath the surface of dark lakes, and thestrals, strange winged horses, visible only to those who have seen death, and grindylows lurking in the weeds of deep water. There are nifflers, small and furry and endlessly fond of anything that glitters, and bowtruckles that guard the trees, and countless other beings both great and small. Some are studied and cared for by wizards. Some are hidden carefully away for their own protection or for the safety of others, and some are simply left to live their wild lives far from any human eye. Because so many of these creatures exist, and because caring for them is such delicate work, the wizarding world has whole traditions of study devoted to them. There are magizoologists who travel far and wide to find and understand rare beasts, keepers who tend to dragons and other dangerous animals, and gentle folk who nurse the injured and the young. At Hogwarts itself, students may learn about magical creatures in their lessons, learning how to approach them, how to feed them, and how to earn their trust. It is careful and sometimes dangerous work, for these are not simple animals, and each kind must be understood on its own terms, with patience and with respect. All of this together, the dragons in their distant reserves, and the unicorns in the deep woods, the centaurs beneath the stars, and the phoenix rising from its ashes, fills the hidden world with a quiet, endless wonder. There is always some new creature to discover, some shy shape moving at the edge of the trees, some far cry drifting on the wind. Let these gentle and marvelous beings drift now softly through your thoughts, unhurried, one after another, like animals grazing at dusk in a warm and distant field. There is nothing to fear among them here, and nothing you need do but rest, while the whole wide menagerie of this magical world moves slowly and peacefully through the quiet dark. For all its towers and its history, Hogwarts is not the only place in the world where young witches and wizards go to learn their craft. Magic is woven quietly through many lands, and each has found its own way of gathering its children and teaching them, so that across the seas and mountains there stand other great schools, each with its own character, its own customs, and its own long story. Two of these in particular are known well to the wizarding folk of Britain. For once in a great while their paths cross with those of Hogwarts, and the three schools come together in friendship. They are Beauxbatons in the mountains of France and Durmstrang in the far cold north. Beauxbatons is a school of elegance and grace, set somewhere among the mountains of France, in a place of gardens and fountains and soft golden light. Where Hogwarts is a rugged old castle of gray stone, Weathered by 1,000 years of Scottish weather, Beauxtons is more like a beautiful palace, all lightness and refinement. Its halls warm and graceful, its grounds carefully tended. Its students are known for their poise and their good manners, and they wear robes of pale silk blue that seem to catch the sunlight. There is a gentleness to the place, a sense of beauty valued and cultivated, and those who come from it carry something of that grace with them wherever they go. It is a school that has produced many gifted witches and wizards over the long years, and it holds a proud and honored place among the magical schools of the world. Far away to the north stands Durmstrang, a very different kind of school, secretive and stern, hidden somewhere in the cold and misty lands of northern Europe. It is a place that guards its privacy closely, so closely that its exact location is kept a careful secret even from most of the wizarding world. And its students are said to be brought there by mysterious means without ever quite knowing where in the world they are. Durmstrang is famous for its rigorous teaching and for the seriousness of its students, who are known to be hardy and formidable. It is a grand and imposing place, suited to the cold northern lands around it, and there is a certain hardness to its reputation, a sense of strength and of secrets kept. Its grounds are wide and its winters long, and those who study there grow used to the cold and to the discipline of the place. These three schools, Hogwarts and Beauxtons and Durmstrang, are counted among the greatest in all of Europe, and though they lie far apart and follow their own separate ways for most of the time, they are bound together by an old and remarkable tradition. Once in a great while, after long stretches of years, the three schools come together to hold a contest of courage and of skill, a grand and famous event known as the Tri-Wizard Tournament. It is a rare and special occasion, held only now and then across the centuries, and when it comes, delegations from Beauxtons and Durmstrang travel across the sea and the land to be guests of the host school for a whole year, so that for that time, the three schools live and study side by side. The tournament was created long ago, in the hope of building friendship and understanding between the wizarding nations, of drawing the young people of different lands together and letting them come to know one another. From each of the three schools, a single champion is chosen, selected by a powerful and impartial enchantment, so that three champions in all stand forward to represent their homes. These champions then face a series of dangerous and difficult tasks spread across the long months of the school year, tasks designed to test their bravery, their cleverness, their skill with magic, and the steadiness of their hearts under great pressure. It is a demanding and sometimes perilous contest, and only the strongest and most resourceful of young witches and wizards are equal to it. The tasks of the tournament are famous for their difficulty and their danger, drawing on every kind of magical challenge. In one, the champions might have to face fearsome creatures, calling upon all their courage and quick thinking simply to come through unharmed. In another, they might have to venture into the dark depths of a lake, holding their breath or finding some clever way to breathe beneath the water, searching for something precious hidden far below. In yet another, they might have to make their way through a vast and shifting maze, full of enchantments and obstacles, each turn bringing some new trial. Through all of these, the champions are watched and judged, and points are awarded for how well and how bravely each one meets the challenge before them. The arrival of the visiting schools is itself a wonder to behold, for each travels in its own remarkable fashion. The students of Beauxtons are said to come sweeping down out of the sky in a great and beautiful flying carriage, drawn by enormous winged horses, an astonishing sight that fills onlookers with amazement. The students of Durmstrang arrive by an equally marvelous means, their great ship rising strangely up out of the depths of a dark lake, water streaming from its sides as it breaks the surface, mysterious and grand. To watch these arrivals is to feel the wide world of magic drawing suddenly close, to sense that Hogwarts, for all its size, is only one bright point in a much larger tapestry of magical life stretched across many lands. The champion of each school is chosen not by any teacher or judge, but by a powerful and ancient enchantment, so that no favoritism or unfairness may creep into the choosing. Each young witch or wizard who wishes to be considered puts their name forward willingly, and then the enchantment weighs all the names in secret and selects the one most fitting to represent each school. Because the choice is made by magic rather than by any person, it is meant to be beyond question, and the champion who steps forward does so knowing that they were called by something older and greater than themselves. It is a heavy honor to be so chosen, and a heavy responsibility too, for the champion carries the hopes of their whole school upon their shoulders through all the long months of the contest. The Tree Wizard Tournament, for all its danger, is meant above all as a celebration and a gathering, a chance for young witches and wizards from far apart to meet, to compete honorably, and to become friends. There are feasts and celebrations, grand balls and long evenings of music and warmth, moments when the students of the three schools mingle freely and learn about one another's homes and ways. Rivalries there may be, and the wish of each school to see its own champion do well. And yet, beneath it all runs the deeper purpose of drawing the wizarding peoples together, of reminding them that though they live in different lands and speak different tongues, they share the same wonder and the same craft. It is friendship, in the end, that the tournament is meant to build. And so the magical world reaches far beyond the mountains of Scotland, out across the sea to France, and away to the cold and secret north, and further still to lands beyond, each with its own schools and its own ways of teaching the young. There is a comfort in knowing this, in knowing that the wonder we have followed does not stop at the edge of one country, but spreads gently across the whole wide world, wherever there are children with magic in them waiting to be taught. Let that thought settle softly over you now. The thought of far schools glowing warm in distant lands, of flying carriages and rising ships, and young people gathered together in friendship across the sea. Let the whole wide world of magic feel close and kind, and let it carry you gently on toward rest. The wizarding world has a long and storied history, far older than any single life, older even than most of the buildings and the families that fill it now. It stretches back through the centuries like a slow and winding river, carrying the names of the great and the humble alike, the builders and the rebels, the peacemakers and those who sought power for its own sake. This history is written down in old and dusty books, carved into ancient stone, painted into the moving portraits that line the corridors, and passed on quietly from one generation to the next. To wander back through it, even a little way, is to feel just how deep the roots of this hidden world truly run. Near the very beginning of that long story stand the four founders of Hogwarts, who lived more than 1,000 years ago, and who together raised the great school in the mountains of Scotland. There were 4 of them, each a witch or wizard of remarkable power, and each gave their name to one of the 4 houses that still divide the school today. They shared a dream of a place where young witches and wizards could be gathered together and taught safely, away from a world that often feared and hunted them. And so they built the castle stone by stone and filled it with enchantments meant to last for ages. For many years they worked side by side in harmony, and the school they made grew and flourished. But in time disagreements arose among them over who should be taught there, and one of the 4 at last left the school, so that only 3 remained to carry the work on together. Long before those founders, and long after them too, the wizarding world was troubled by the difficult and often uneasy relationship between witches and wizards and the goblins. the proud and clever people who mine and shape metal and who keep the great bank of the wizarding world. Over the centuries, there were many quarrels between the two peoples, and more than once these quarrels flared into open conflict, into what the history books call the Goblin Rebellions. These were times of anger and mistrust, of old wounds reopened and grievances remembered. For the goblins felt that wizards looked down upon them and denied them their rightful place, while wizards feared the goblins' cunning and their skill. Though peace of a kind always returned in the end, the memory of those old struggles never quite faded, and something wary and careful has always remained between the two peoples ever since. One of the greatest turning points in all of wizarding history came in the year 1689 with the signing of the International Statute of Secrecy. For a very long time before that, witches and wizards had lived more openly among ordinary people, but that openness had brought them fear and danger, suspicion and persecution. The long and terrible age of the witch hunts, when magical folk and innocent muggles alike were accused and harmed. Weary at last of hiding badly and suffering for it, the wizarding nations of the world came together and agreed upon a great law. A law that would hide the whole of the magical world away behind a veil of secrecy. From that day forward, witches and wizards would keep their magic hidden from ordinary eyes, and the two worlds, once tangled together, would learn to live quietly side by side, one bright and open, the other veiled and unseen. The history of the wizarding world is not only a history of laws and schools and old quarrels, however, for it is also, sadly, a history of dark wars. More than once in the long centuries, powerful wizards arose who wished not to live quietly and kindly, but to rule, who believed that magic gave them the right to command others and to reshape the world to their own liking. These dark wizards gathered followers to themselves and spread fear across the land, and against them rose others who fought to protect what was good and gentle and free. Such wars brought great sorrow to the wizarding world, dividing families and communities, testing the courage of ordinary witches and wizards to its very limit. Yet through all of them there ran a steady and stubborn thread of hope, the refusal of good people to let fear and cruelty win, and in the end, the darkness was always, at great cost, pushed back once more into the shadows. Guarding against such darkness, and against every lesser threat besides, the wizarding world slowly built up its great institutions across the centuries. The Ministry of Magic grew into the government that keeps the secret and makes the laws, its many departments taking shape one by one over long years of need and change. The High Court of Wizarding Law took its place to weigh the gravest matters, and skilled witches and wizards were trained to hunt those who turned to dark magic. Each of these was born out of the lessons of history, out of hard experience and old mistakes remembered, so that the wizarding world of today rests upon foundations laid down slowly, painfully, and wisely by all the generations that came before. Alongside the wars and the laws there runs, too, a quieter history of discovery and of craft, the slow work of countless witches and wizards who added, year by year, to the store of magical knowledge. There were the great potion makers who learned the secrets of rare and difficult brews, the wand makers who perfected their art across long generations, the healers who found ways to mend wounds that once could not be mended, and the scholars who studied the stars and the creatures and the deep laws of magic itself. Much of what is taught at Hogwarts today was first discovered by some patient wizard long ago, working quietly by candlelight, and passed down carefully ever since. This gentler history rarely fills the loud pages of the chronicles, and yet it shaped the wizarding world quite as deeply as any war. For it is the sum of all that knowledge that makes the magic of the present day possible at all. Everywhere in the wizarding world, the past presses gently but constantly against the present, so that no one who lives there is ever quite free of history. The moving portraits upon the walls are the likenesses of witches and wizards long dead, still watching, still murmuring, still remembering the days they knew. The old books in the great libraries hold the records of ages, the deeds and discoveries and follies of those who came before. The very stones of Hogwarts remember the founders who laid them, and the vaults of the goblins remember old bargains struck long ago. To grow up in this world is to grow up surrounded by memory, to feel oneself a small part of a very long and continuing story. And that story is far from finished, for history in the wizarding world is not a closed book, but an open one, still being written day by day. New witches and wizards are born and grow and are taught. New discoveries are made. New friendships and new quarrels take shape. And each generation adds its own chapter to the long and unbroken tale. The founders would scarcely know the school as it is today. And yet their dream lives on within its walls, carried forward by every child who is sorted beneath its ancient hat. The past flows into the present, and the present flows on toward a future none can yet see, all of it part of the same slow and shining river. Let that long river of history carry you gently now, the founders and the goblins and the old signed law, the dark wars and the steady hope that outlasted them, the portraits and the books and the remembering stones. There is no need to hold on to any name or any date, no need to keep the order of it straight. Simply let the great slow current of the past drift by beneath you, deep and calm and unhurried, carrying all those countless lives softly downstream, while you rest here in the quiet present, warm and safe, and let the whole long story flow on without you into the peaceful dark. And so we come at last to the end of our long and gentle tour, having wandered together through so many rooms of this hidden world that it is hard now to believe we began only a little while ago at a single quiet door. We have traveled far without ever leaving the warmth of where we rest, from the highest towers to the deepest vaults, from the coldest sea to the warmest kitchen. And now we may simply pause and look back softly over all the places we have seen, and let the whole of it gather quietly around us one last time before we set it down. We began, so long ago it seems, with the hidden world itself, the world of witches and wizards woven quietly into our own, sharing the same streets and the same gray skies, while remaining almost entirely unseen. We learned of the old law of secrecy that veiled it away, signed in a distant year to end an age of fear, and we saw how the two worlds came to live gently side by side, one bright and open, the other quiet and hidden behind old brick walls. From there we climbed into the mountains of Scotland and came at last within sight of Hogwarts, the great school of towers and turrets and moving stairs, dearest of all places to the children of magic. We wandered through the school and all its wonders, unhurried, room by room. We stood in the great hall beneath its enchanted ceiling and watched the sorting of the new students beneath the ancient hat, dividing them gently among the four old houses, the brave and the loyal, the clever and the ambitious. We walked the shifting corridors past drifting ghosts and murmuring portraits, sat in on lessons of charms and potions and transfiguration, and followed the long years of study all the way to the great examinations that mark a young witch or wizard's path. Everywhere within those walls, we found small wonders that had long since become ordinary to those who lived among them. Then, we left the castle and went down into the wider world of magic, into the crooked cobbled lane of Diagon Alley behind its hidden wall, crowded with shops selling everything a young wizard could need. We stepped into the dusty quiet of the old wand shop, where each wand waits to choose its wizard, and we descended into the marble halls and deep tunnels of Gringotts, where the proud goblins keep the gold. We walked the snowy little streets of the all-wizard village, warm windows glowing gold against the dusk, and we lifted our eyes to watch a game of Quidditch played high in the air, 7 against 7, chasing the tiny golden snitch through the sky. We went down, too, into the vast underground halls of the Ministry of Magic, where the folded paper birds flutter from office to office and the whole hidden society is quietly governed. We saw its many departments, its keepers of law and its hunters of dark wizards, its high court weighing the gravest matters. We looked out across the cold gray water to the lonely fortress of Azkaban, and then turned gladly away from that shadow toward gentler things. We met the strange and wondrous creatures of this world, the dragons and unicorns, the centaurs and phoenixes and faithful house elves, and we sailed across the sea to the other great schools and their rare and famous tournament of friendship. And at the last, we traced the long river of history that flows beneath it all. The founders and the old wars and the steady hope that outlasted every darkness. And beyond all the great rooms we entered, there were the smaller wonders too, the ones that gave the world its warmth. There were the sweets and the butterbeer in the little village shops, the owls carrying letters through the morning air, the enchanted candles floating high in the great hall, the folded paper birds fluttering along the ministry corridors, and the soft silver light of a unicorn moving among dark trees. There were the house elves working quietly in the deep kitchens, the ghosts drifting kindly through the halls, and the moving portraits murmuring to one another late at night. It is these small and gentle things, as much as the castles and the courts, that make the hidden world feel like a place one might truly wish to live, and it is these that linger most softly when everything else has faded. It is a very great deal to have seen, and yet there is nothing at all that you must remember of it, and nothing you must hold. This was never a lesson to be studied or a map to be memorized, but only a slow and gentle wandering, laid out like smooth stones in still water, one after another, each one glimpsed and then let go. The names may already be softening and blurring together in your mind, the castle and the street and the bank and the village all melting gently into one warm golden haze, and that is exactly as it should be. You were never meant to carry any of it away with you. You were only meant to walk through it a while, unhurried and calm, and to be soothed. Think, if it soothes you, of how much wonder can live in a single hidden world, all of it real to those who dwell there, all of it ordinary to them as your own street is ordinary to you. To a child of Hogwarts, the moving staircases and the talking portraits are nothing to marvel at, only the familiar furniture of home, and the owls that carry the post are as everyday as the rain. To a goblin in the deep vaults, the rushing carts and the carved tunnels are simply the place of daily work, and to a keeper of dragons, the great winged beasts are known creatures with names and tempers and habits. What seems to us astonishing is to them only life, quiet and daily and dear, and there is something deeply restful in that thought, in the way even the most marvelous world settles at last into the gentle rhythm of the everyday. For what we have really been doing all this long while is not learning about a world so much as resting within it, letting its quiet wonders fill the space where the day's cares used to be. A whole world living peacefully beside our own, full of magic and law and old tradition, full of castles and creatures and gentle golden light, and all of it now folding softly closed, like a book laid gently down, like a door drawn quietly to at the end of a long and happy visit. There is no more to see tonight, and nothing more that need be done, and that is a comfort all its own. So let the whole bright world settle now into stillness, every room of it growing dim and quiet and warm. Let the towers of the castle fade, and the snowy village, and the deep vaults and the crowded lane. All of them drifting softly out of sight like lights going out one by one across a valley at the close of day. Let the creatures grow still in their distant fields and forests, and the great schools fall quiet across the sea, and the long river of history flow on peacefully without you, deep and slow and calm. Feel your body grow heavy and warm and safe, held gently by the dark, and let your breathing slow the way still water settles when the wind has at last lain down. There is nowhere you need to go, and nothing you need to do, only this quiet room and this soft and gathering rest. The whole hidden world is safe and complete, resting just as you are resting, waiting patiently in the dark to be visited again whenever you wish. Let it fade now, gently and completely, and let the last of these quiet words dissolve softly into silence around you. Let go of the day and of the tour and of every thought that still lingers, and simply drift, easy and unhurried, down into the deep and peaceful stillness that has been waiting for you all along. And so our long, gentle tour of the wizarding world comes softly to its close. We have wandered together through so many rooms of this hidden world, and now we may let them all drift quietly back into the mist. We began beside our own ordinary world, where witches and wizards live unseen, and we learned of the Statute of Secrecy that keeps them hidden away. We climbed into the mountains to the great castle of Hogwarts, with its 4 houses and its ancient sorting hat, its moving staircases and its wandering ghosts, its long years of lessons and its great examinations. We walked down the crooked lane of Diagon Alley and into the dusty shop where the wands wait upon their shelves. We descended into Gringotts, deep beneath the city where the goblins keep their gold, and we strolled through the snowy village of Purolard where the windows glow warm and gold. We watched a game of Quidditch high in the air with its chasing balls and its tiny darting snitch. We explored the vast underground halls of the Ministry of Magic with its many departments and its folded paper birds, its courts and its laws, and we looked out to the cold fortress of Azkaban standing lonely in the sea. We met the wondrous creatures of this world, the dragons and the hippogriffs, the phoenixes and the gentle house elves. We sailed across the water to the other great schools, to Boptons in its mountains and Durmstrang in the north, and we remembered the long history that flows beneath it all, the founders and the wars and the slow river of names. There is nothing left now that you must remember, nothing to carry, nothing to hold. Let this whole bright and wondrous world settle softly into stillness, like a castle seen far off through falling snow, growing quieter and dimmer until it fades entirely from view. Your breathing is slow, your body is heavy and warm, and the world around you has grown gentle and dark. Let it all fade. Sleep now, deeply and well. Good night. And whenever you wish to wander through these hidden halls again, another gentle story will be waiting quietly here for you.